Okay, welcome everyone. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. I will call this meeting to order subject to section 1983 of the Wisconsin statutes. Our first item is to adopt the agenda. Rick, is there any changes that we need to make here?
There are no changes at this time.
All right, we will need a motion.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Next item is recognition of visitors, and our rules for public comment are as follows. Please approach the podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you'd like to address. A lot of time is 3 minutes per individual, or 6 minutes if you are representing a group. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will not act on any comments that are made during a meeting. The presiding officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. And as always, the public comment section is limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken to extent. In our public comment policy, you can refer to that for a full description of this meeting. So if anybody would care to approach.
Do we want to do Pledge of Allegiance first?
I missed that.
Pat noticed.
Okay, well, we read through that. I won't go through it again. We're gonna back up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pat, go ahead and lead us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, now is public comment section. Anybody care to be recognized at this time? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Sarah Markert. I'm a parent. Most of you know me. I am going to speak towards the arts reduction process plan, however it's worded. I obviously have a very strong opinion about the arts and all it does for our kids. I could spend much more than 3 minutes saying all the benefits of the arts. But what I really just want to say is that I realize we need to make reductions across the board, and I appreciated Mr. Figge's illustration of how we're going to cut it equally. But with that, I do want to just remind all of us that it seems the position for the middle school choir teacher has not been posted. That was a decision that will not be filled this year, and that is a huge reduction to the arts program. And I know we're going to talk about extracurricular arts and not the school arts, but they largely influence each other. So to be able to talk about one without the other is not feasible. And I can understand the argument would be made, well, you could say that about teachers and coaches as well, but I think we can all agree that it's really not apples to apples, and the percentage reduction to a program dealing with the arts has to consider a music teacher. I mean, that has to be part of it, a music program. So my ask to the school board is that you consider that we've already made a pretty drastic reduction to the arts by not posting that position at the middle school level. And as you make your discussion and decisions, please just consider that. Thank you.
Thanks. Sarah, anybody else care to approach the podium? Do you recommend? All right, thank you. We're going to move on. Next item is good news, and we are going to go to the admin team here, Rick, or?
Yes, and tonight we'll start with our Andrew. Do we have invited guests? All right, and they're present. So Tanya, do you want to start? We continue to have what I would call just historic performances by our speech team under the leadership of Tanya Sponholz, and she has some students here, and I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, absolutely. We were invited today to talk about our season, which concluded about a month ago, and I'm going to let two of our leaders of our team talk about the season. We've got Grace Ryan with us, who's a senior, and she was our team captain, and we've got Sophia Kapsch, who's a junior, who probably will be a captain next year, most likely, but they're going to talk about the season.
Okay, so So like Ms. Fonholt says, I was the speech team captain this year, and I'll start us off by talking about the highlights of our season. We took second place at the Prescott Invitational, the Baldwin-Woodville Invitational, the Menominee, and the Menominee Invitational. For the Ellsworth tournament, we took third place, but we weren't too upset about any of these second place wins because we were competing against a team with over half of our members, so we thought it was twice our size. So we thought it was pretty impressive to be able to still compete with a group that large. Another highlight of this year is we had a lot of perfect tournaments, one of them being Sophia here at the Ellsworth tournament and Ali Tabayan at the Baldwin-Woodville tournament. Another really big highlight of our season was our team mascot, who was aptly dubbed Speechy, and he is a very small red bear with a piece of yellow paper on his nose to make him look like a cardinal. Speechy may seem insignificant, but he was important to our team because he represented our MVPs of each week. Every week we went to a tournament, he was awarded to a different member or a different category of our team who would protect him until our next tournament and bring him home safe. And he was a representative of our camaraderie as a team and the good things that we all brought together and the different aspects that we brought as a team. So, yeah. Okay, we'll move on to how we did at state this year. At state, we had pretty much everybody on our team go this year, and we had 9 gold medals, 9 silver medals, and 5 bronze medals. And for state, this was the first year that double entries were allowed. I was one of the members of our team working on a double entry for throughout the season and brought them both to state. For me, I got a gold in impromptu and a silver in oratory. Katie Hoopert had silvers in both impromptu and special occasion. And finally, Hunter Dearborn, our third double entry, had gold in expository and bronze in impromptu. And we got the distinction in speech award this year, which means we were top 6 to 10% in the state.
I also want to just mention a few things that makes speech team especially special to the kids who participated in it, and specifically me. I know that I have gained such a sense of community within this group that I've been in for 3 years out of my high school career. I enjoy the support that I get from my speech coaches and from my team, and everyone just lifts each other up. It's truly just a beautiful experience, I think. I've learned so many good skills about how to communicate effectively with others, and I learned so many new topics from all the people who present to me and to others in all their different categories, and it really highlights your different specialties and what you can do. And I think that speech team really allows people to explore that, and it's a great program, and I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan Simon. Joan's going to give us an update on the National History Day.
So for those of you who might not be familiar with National History Day, it is an academic contest in which students pick a historical topic of their choice, and then they research it throughout the year and then relate it to a yearly theme. It is a national organization, so a lot of employers and schools are going to be familiar when they see that NHD as part of their high school experience. This year's theme was Turning Points in History, and so we had 20 students who started out the season with us. 14 of them were able to go to regionals. Regionals was held the week of spring break, and so we had a lot of students that were kind of heartbroken. We were able to send some of our teams because if part of the team could be there, they could still compete. Of the 14 kids that went to regionals at UW Eau Claire, 2 of those were able to go to the state contest in Madison. The way that History Day works is there are 5 categories. You can share your research in a website, a documentary, a written paper, an exhibit, or a performance. And this year, we had a website and a documentary go to state. There are 2 examples of an exhibit over there in case anybody would like to take a look at that before you leave. We had topics, D-Day was one of our topics, Martin Luther King Jr., Title IX, 9/11, a turning point in airport security, the KKK, a dark turning point in U.S. history, and the liberation of Auschwitz. The cool thing about it is they tend to take their interests and passions, and then they relate it to the history, and then they have to have the technical skills to create the project. Each project has a stack of paperwork requirements, very, very thorough works cited page. It's really kind of amazing the work that the kids do for this. And then after they present, they're interviewed by college, either professors or college students studying history. And you should see our kids. It's amazing how well-spoken they are and how nice they are able to communicate and kind of sometimes support their own views in the face of these other judges. So that's kind of how where we're at this year. The kids really want to do it next year. I've had several talk to me about it already, so thank you, and thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Administrative team updates.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Spikuza. In student services, I would like to share our good news that on May 10th, 9 total students from our district participated in what's called the Friendship Games at the Hudson Raiders Stadium. Our students were super excited to go. We had several from the elementary school and several from the middle school. The day started with an Olympic-style opening ceremony where each school district is announced as they enter the stadium, and then the teams participate in different races and then have an awards ceremony afterwards, and then they are also treated to additional games and sensory experiences, and then the day was topped off with a treat of popcorn and snow cones. So they had a great time, and we were super excited to do it this year, and we're hoping to expand it to more students with special needs next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Sarah Dusick, Malone Elementary. A huge shout out to Faith Seward on the K-5 music programs that she put together for this year. They were magical and amazing, as they always are. She did have a lot of support from other staff members too, but Faith just always puts on such a great show, and it was so fun to see those students up on stage performing again. Also, a huge thank you to the Malone Parent Committee. During the week of staff appreciation, they provided different goodies and treats for the staff each day, and the staff really appreciated that. It was a good boost of energy for them. And then just a reminder that kindergarten graduation will be on Thursday, May 30th at 1:15 at the PAC Center here at the high school. So.
Thank you, sir.
Michael Kosmalski, the Intermediate School. STEM Day 2024, our inaugural STEM Day here at the high school took place. I want to thank Cam Meyer, high school science teacher, and Carrie Sizemore, our Intermediate School STEM teacher, for putting together a great day of learning for our 4th grade students. They participated in some hands-on activities, including some GPS scavenger hunt, some tree aging and planting, a nature walk, and pond life, using the water from the pond out front here, and some microscopes to discover what's living in our water. Again, I want to thank them for putting that together. And then the high school earth science students did a really nice job leading the learning for the day. And I just want to recognize 2 of them. I was in the microscope room all day. Lincoln Hood and Stephen Atherton just did a fabulous job with the 4th graders. So appreciate them for giving them that opportunity. I want to thank Kyle Schmidt and the high school tech crew. They're down at the intermediate school right now working on one of our outdoor storage sheds. It needs a refresh. It's getting some new doors so the raccoons can't crawl in anymore, and some paint. So thank them for doing that. AP testing wraps up tomorrow with AP Bio, and that should be the last final state type testing for the season. And then finally, 5th grade graduation is on Wednesday, May 29th, 1 o'clock at the PAC Center as well.
Thanks, Michael.
Kyle Lego, middle school principal. It's that time of year, the month of May, that we are starting to wrap a lot of things up. So I do want to throw a shout out to all of the teachers and students at Prescott Middle School. We just finished our Fast Bridge testing. It's our screener that we do 3 times per year. We have the highest math scores that we've ever had at this time of the year in math, and we have about the second highest ELA scores that we've ever had in Fast Bridge. So we're closing out the year in a pretty strong way right now. So thank you to staying academically focused and doing really well on those things. We had our last band concert of the season last week, and it's really great to watch our kiddos as they grow and develop from 6th grade to 8th grade, and from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It was really great. Our choir concert tomorrow evening, and then finally a shout out to the middle school parent committee and all of the middle school parents for all of the great things they did for us at the middle school last week.
Thank you, Mr. Ago. I heard a bell.
All right, good evening. I don't want to be redundant, but first off, thank you to the high school parent committee for helping us host an amazing staff appreciation week last week, and then to our staff to be appreciated last week for all the things that they've done this year. A couple of specific things. We also had our choir concert this past Monday and band concert last week. They were both phenomenal to end out the year that way. A lot of fun, some tears, some celebrations. One celebration of note, and you might have seen it up there. We have a future Grammy winner. And I don't even know if he's in the room. There he is, future Grammy winner. So it's going to be like Kanye and Canfield. I honestly don't know if Kanye won a Grammy. But yeah, congratulations to Mr. Canfield. I think one of 213 finalists, or semifinalists, quarterfinalists across the nation for music educators. So a huge honor, kind of a testament to the work that he's done with students in the class and in the community and at Disney, and so just a lot of really amazing things. Another specific staff group who actually happen to be here tonight as well are tech ed guys in the back. You might have seen their projects around the community at tax, zooming around the neighborhood. They put together in a pretty awesome high mileage vehicle. You're going to get to hear from them later tonight, but you've probably seen their work or their students' work, or maybe you have a nightstand that was made in one of their classes as well. And then to some big things. Next Thursday, we're really excited to be able to honor or host our second annual Academic Awards Breakfast to honor our students who have achieved high honors throughout the year, our Laude, our honors students that are seniors and graduating with honors, our National Honor Society students who are being inducted, as well as those who are already inducted to recognize their continued work, and then some non-financial but no less important junior and senior awards that we'll be giving out as well. So that's next Thursday, and if you haven't purchased your tickets and you got an invite as a parent, please do so. And then the big one for us next Friday, May 24th, is our commencement ceremony, our graduation for our students, and celebrating their achievement over all the years that they've been in Prescott School District, whether this is their first year or it's their 12th year. And I'm really excited to announce our commencement speakers. We announced them earlier this week, but every year now we have a staff keynote speaker that our summa cum laude or highest honor students select, that they believe will leave a lasting message for students and have something to impart on them. So basically the last staff member they're going to hear from in their academic career. And this year the group almost unanimously selected Mr. Bryce McCulley, a math teacher. We also selected 2 students from our summa cum laude group to be the commencement student speakers of honor, and they go through a pretty rigorous process to do so. They have to meet that summa cum laude status first and foremost. Then they have to put together essentially a mini portfolio for our staff committee to anonymously review. And so this includes an outline or the actual speech that they would give, why they want to give the speech, how the school has impacted them, what cardinal pride means to them, and then the staff goes through and selects the 2 that they believe would be the best message to give to the class. This year, I'm really excited. She's not here anymore, but Grace Ryan, who spoke earlier tonight, is one of our student commencement speakers, and Mackenzie Hegland, who's also not here, but could have been here, would have been the other. So So congratulations to those two. I think it's going to be a really great commencement ceremony.
They're working on their speeches.
They're working, well, yeah. And then the last thing, because I think this is probably the last board meeting where I could do it, is just to honor our two retirees, Mr. Jay Barch, Miss Lori Pedretti, for their years of service. You can see them up on the board right now. 32 and 34 years of service, and so as they finish out the last 2 weeks of a very long and storied career, just want to wish them well and thank them for their service. Thanks for listening to my rambling.
Thank you, Mr. Figge. All right, I will wrap us up. I just wanted to, as you can see, May is a race to the finish, but it's celebratory on a roller coaster year. As you see on the board, we are celebrating May 31st. It's a professional development day, but in the midst of the day, we do take time out to recognize among our colleagues those who are retiring, but also individuals that have increments of 5 years of service to the district. And as you look at that list, and then you look around this room, you'll see that there are many individuals who have multiple years of service who are in the room tonight. So not only are they serving in our classroom out in the community, but they also are participants here on Wednesday nights at the school board. We'll later be hearing from Mike Koika hitting 20 years, and the one that has the highest number of years of service now that retirements are in will be Mr. Jeff Ryan at 35 years. Again, that celebration is on May 31st, and I do believe right now, Vicki, you have been able to join us, and if any of the other board members are able to, just make sure that you RSVP to Courtney so we can assist with serving our staff. National History Day, you heard a little bit about that, but even locally we have a great exhibit about the history of the Prescott Public Schools. It was put together by many individuals, but spearheaded by two people that you are probably well aware of, and that is Dallas Eggers, as well as Elise Block. Elise invited myself and Andrea Herzon to go down there and visit. We have student groups that are visiting also to kind of see not only report cards, letter jackets, pictures of our buildings. It's going to run through August, and so if you do have an interest, not only just in history, but architecture and stories behind the stories of the Prescott School District, please take advantage of our local historical society and stop in. Tomorrow, we have a recognition of music and the arts at the Prescott High School. It is going to be put and hosted by El Verno University out of Milwaukee. It is to celebrate the music and the arts, to recognize the work that's ongoing here at Prescott High School. It does recognize Mr. Figge for the award that he was honored earlier. Just a note, he has also been invited in June to do a keynote speech for the arts and music in representing that. You heard earlier about Mr. Canfield and his Grammy Award, and then also the work of Brittany Camrath. So individuals that are interested, we are able to host up to 90 adults. My understanding it is from 2 to 4 o'clock here to kind of celebrate music and the arts. And so what a good day for that. Josh mentioned about graduation is the Friday at 7 p.m. of May 24th. We have kindergarten graduation May 30th, and then staff recognition that we talked about. So that wraps up a very exciting and fruitful May.
All right, thank you, Rick. We'll get down to business here. First item on school business is item A, adopt the consent agenda. In the consent, we have the April 17th, 2024 board minutes, finance report, personnel report for non-licensed staff. We have a resignation and retiree there. Selection of depository for investment funds. Designate the official newspaper and publication of minutes, which is Pierce County Journal as the official newspaper and publication of the business minutes, and then renewal of the WIAA annual membership. That's all in the consent agenda. Anything the board would like to pull out?
No.
All right, I'll adopt the consent agenda as presented. Any objections? No objections, then consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. And we move on. Item B, consider personnel reports for licensed staff. No new hires
There are no new hires at this time.
and resignations.
We have 2 resignations, 7th grade math teacher Madison Olson and Amy Potasic from, she changes the name pronunciation to differentiate from the grocery store. It's Malone special ed teacher.
Sorry.
Potasic, yep.
I would never guess. Anybody have any comments here?
No.
Okay. We can, and no retirees, right?
Correct.
Okay, so anybody want to make a motion here?
I move to approve the personnel report for the licensed staff listed above.
A second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next item is our elect school board offices. This is we do this every May, post-election. So first seat is the president. Anybody want to make a nomination here?
You get to ask 3 times,
I
right?
have to ask 3 times.
Okay.
Yes.
I move.
I nominate Mike Petzik as president of the school board.
I'll second.
We have a nomination. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, that's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Thank you. Next one up is vice president.
I nominate Tanya Holland for vice president.
I second.
Motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All in favor for Tanya as vice president?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Next one is clerk.
Are you treasurer?
I nominate Pat Block as clerk of the school board.
I second.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? That's a motion and a second for Pat Block as clerk. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Riveting. We have, next one is treasurer.
I move to elect Vicki Rudolph as treasurer of the school board.
Second.
You don't want this one?
No.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, that is Vicki Rudolph as treasurer. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one also carries. All right, that concludes the election of officers. Thank you. We'll move on to item D, set date and time for school board meetings. And Rick, we always have Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Is everybody good with that?
6 o'clock has been good, I think.
Yeah, it's worked for me.
Yeah?
Yep.
I like it.
And it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month.
Yep.
I move to designate the 3rd Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. at Prescott High School as the official date, time, and location of the 2024-2025 board meetings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one also carries. All right, so let's go to item E, district library plan.
See if it works from back there.
Just got laminated stuff. Laminated.
And they
Placemats.
Yes, I use these in the library class that I teach when we talk about school libraries.
Thank you.
And Wisconsin's vision, and that's what our library plan is based on. So I thought.
So as Joan alluded, the state of Wisconsin asks us to create a library plan. So the two of us sat down with help of others and created a library plan for the 2024 through 2027 school year. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to highlight a couple of the different areas that we think we excel at, and then we'd also like to share our goals for the next 3 years. Oops, sorry, we'll go backwards. The first area that we want to highlight is our community partnerships.
Over the past couple years, we partner a great deal with the Prescott Public Library. We visit, someone from our staff goes almost every day to, we loan books through the public library system. If we have things that students want and we feel that at this time we're not going to be purchasing it, the Prescott Public Library is such a great resource. So we work with them constantly, every day basically. We collaborate with CVTC. I teach a class called Foundations of Library and Media, which is actually a CVTC class. It's a transcripted credit class, and we are the only school in the whole state of Wisconsin that offers the class. So I get to work one-on-one with the CVTC professor because I'm her only person. And so it's very, very directly in line with the CVTC class. And it allows us to teach digital literacy really, really in depth here at the high school. So that's pretty neat. And working with CVTC has just been really an amazing benefit to our libraries. History Day, we do a ton of community outreach with History Day. We have worked with Freedom Park, we have worked with the Gathering Place, Kiwanis. We again also help with the kickoff to summer night at the Prescott Public Library, so that has been a nice way to do some community outreach. And we did quite a bit of work for the Prescott Historical Society's display that they've got up right now. Libby Severson spent hours putting together a database of all of the employees that we went all the way back to like 1854 of the employees that have worked in the Prescott School District, and it's all together and online now, so if anybody ever wanted that information, it is there. So those are some of the things we're doing 6 through 12. Do you want to speak to some of yours?
Sure. So for the community partnership that we do K through 5, this past year we did our One Book, One School, and we're hoping next year, we actually already know that for next year we're getting support from our community. Acton Apple made a generous donation so that we can continue that program, and it's beneficial to all of our students because we all read the same book. We're also going to expand it hopefully to the elementary school, and we're going to have a read aloud that will be consistent K-3. So then for me, it's very nice because then all those students have read the same book, and I can use that as a basis to recommend other books to them. I can say to them, oh, well, you all read about Humphrey. Well, maybe you'd like to read The Mouse and the Motorcycle. So it's very nice.
So with the collaborative leadership, some of the things that we feel like we're doing well, we work really closely with the classroom teachers. We make sure that they have, if they want something, they're getting it. We're making it work. And we do support the literature circle at the middle school, all of those classes. We work really closely with the ELA classes and quite a few of the other classes too at the high school to make sure that they can provide choice reading and book club type reading. We participate in the PD PLCs, and this year I took part in the AI class that was taught and was really helpful, and we learned a lot that we're able to put into our programs. At the middle school, of course, we do our 6th through 8th AR reading program, Battle of the Books, and then we have several programs at the high school, Guys Read Club, Writer's Block, National History Day, Book Club, and we do monthly book talks. It's really the best bang for the buck. It costs no money. We get to go in, we get to touch base with kids and teachers, find out what they need, and get books in their hands. So that's another one of the things that really is beneficial.
So as part of the early release on Mondays, I've been able to meet with all of the different PLCs at all the different grade levels from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, and worked to have coordinated programs and coordinated activities. One of the things that I'm going to be doing tomorrow is the first grade has been working on a mapping unit, and so I created a project, an activity for the first graders. I went and took pictures of our playground, and they're going to use those pictures to make a map of our playground. So it's something that they're doing in their classroom, and then I'm also using it in media, and we kind of connect. So at the end of the school year, I also do a lot of math with escape rooms, and the kids kind of give me a hard time. They're like, "You want me to do math in media?" I'm like, "Yep, yes I do." We're just extending it. So our last area that we wanted to highlight was our curriculum instruction and assessment. We think of ourselves, and I know as part of our training, at least for me, was you need to basically have a good overview of what the curriculum is at each grade level. It really helps in our collection development because then we know what different topics and different units are being taught in each grade level. And then that helps us to actually purchase materials that highlight and emphasize those different areas. So we also see, for me, I see every student in kindergarten through 5, so I have a good bird's eye overview of what's going on in our school, which is kind of nice.
I guess the only thing I would point out here is just because some materials are not purchased in print form doesn't mean we aren't purchasing them. I think that's lost sometimes. People think, well, the library is going to close because you're not buying books. We're still buying a lot of books and reading a lot of books. But there are definitely resources that are now purchased to be online. And so we maintain a virtual library page, which we utilize a lot of things from the state. But there are many, many resources on that page that people have access to through our library.
So after we went through and reviewed our library programs and what we're doing, we came up with 3 goals that we would like to work on for the next 3 years. So our first one was to meet with tech and finance once a year to discuss the budget and how our money is being spent on technology. We receive funding from the Common School Fund, which is specifically identified as money that goes to the library. And so we want to make sure that we're using those funds. There are restrictions as to what it can be used for, and we want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck.
And we really want to focus next year on marketing the things that we have, and especially some of the online things that get lost in the shuffle. And that's kind of a 2-step process. We want to kind of market it, but we also, as in our number 3 goal, increase the amount of collaboration and face-to-face time with staff members so that they're better utilizing the things that we actually have. So marketing through the website, through our different social media and things, but also face-to-face would be our 2 big goals for next year.
So that's our plan.
Awesome, thanks girls. Alan, do you have any questions or comments here?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay, Vicki?
No.
Johnny, anything?
No, but I was really fascinated to read about how many kids are checking out books, and I did see the online material was listed there too, so that was fascinating. And
our middle school kids went from like 199 books to 998 e-books and audiobooks through the SOAR program, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But really awesome.
It is awesome, and I think I do hear from communities, and I work in a school too, and it feels like purchasing less books, but really those dollar amounts go in other kind of more, I would say, modern books and how people are reading now. So also my daughter takes the library and literacy and children's book classes and always gets so much from it. So thank you.
Pat?
No, it looks great. No questions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank both Joan and Erica. The work that you do on behalf of our students, it isn't just the impact that they have on Prescott School District, but it also goes out into the community and statewide. So very appreciative for the work that you two do. Also, this library plan does get submitted to the Department of Instruction, and now that it's been presented to the board, that step can take place.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Take a motion here.
I move to approve the district library plan for the 2024 through 2027 school years.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. And item F is consider second reading of updated or new board policies. No changes.
So we did have a first reading last month. These are very specific and kind of boilerplate. Every year, we have to make sure that we're in compliance with federal law and basically the thresholds on which, when we receive money, how it gets allocated into the right funds. That is Policy 6325. Policy 6611 was also about district-supported student groups. Remember that we do have Fund 60. You get an update on that every month. That fund, those funds are just in custody. We are custodians of that money, but it is earmarked for student trips when they go to Washington, D.C., when they go abroad, when they go to Disney World, also for the local groups as they do things within the school setting. There's just guidelines about how that occurs, and then we also have Policy 8431 on preparedness for toxic hazards, both on the training that is involved, how it's stored, a lot of the things that Mike Koika works with his facility and grounds, the inspections that occur. We just passed OSHA recently, but also even in our chem labs and STEM labs of making sure that paint and chemicals are stored. They're in inflammable boxes and things like that. So all those were presented to you last month. We didn't have any changes, and so they're here for you for second reading and approval if you don't have any further questions.
Vicki, any questions on these?
No.
Ellen?
No.
Tanya?
No.
No questions. All right. I don't have any questions here.
I move to accept the second reading of the above noted policies with the following edits for consideration.
I'll second.
And there was no edits or considerations,
Right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries as well. Let's move to item G, the Art Department reduction process.
Yes, so I am going to ask Mr. Igo and Josh Biggie one more time on that knee rover to come forward. Let me just kind of make sure that we understand, you all know as a board that we have different buckets. Money is designated or segregated into those buckets. Our theater program, once it goes into extracurricular, does tap into multiple funds. So tonight's discussion is specifically about Fund 10. Fund 10 is what we were asking for the community on April 2nd to assist us for operating. Fund 21 is about gifts, fundraising, and grants. And so when you get into the curriculum, one of the commenters earlier this evening did notice that in April, the board did set aside some principles with regards to guiding principles of how finance and the superintendent were directed to work with the administrative team to make reductions. One of the guiding principles was that when there were individuals who stepped aside, retired, or resigned, that those positions would stay open if we could figure out creative ways to solve or deliver the same type of programming in a different way. I do want people to understand that the budget reductions for the arts department does include the open position at middle school choir. After we go through this, the recommendations by administration, if accepted by the board, would account for about $96,000 of expenses that would be reduced in Fund 10 for the next school year. I want to compliment both Mr. Figge and Kyle Igo. They have been working with our teacher leaders in 6th through 12th grade for 2 band teachers and a choral teacher. I am very appreciative that our teachers, who are also part of a PLC, a professional learning community, were participating in identifying creative ways to make sure that students would still have access to band, choir, and other musical, general music options from 6 through 12. That's not necessarily what we're going to be talking about tonight, but I do want people to understand is that our teachers and administration have been partnering to make sure that we do still have 3 staff members that will be providing music opportunities from 6th through 12th grade. It is a reduction from 4 to 3, but we are confident that we'll have opportunities and programming at middle school and high school. So tonight, I would just ask that, Mr. Igo, if you could just start with the 3 considerations that we balanced tonight's presentation on. Even though they're up there, if you could just articulate that for the group.
So due to the referendum not passing on April 2nd, we obviously had to, we're cutting from Fund 10. We looked at staffing, we looked at athletics, and now we're taking a look at the art side of things. We believe that all of the reductions that we have in this proposal have the least amount of impact on students that we possibly could. It still provides programming 6 through 12 for our musical opportunities. We are not decreasing any of the programs, just going to decrease some of the supports there. The budget proposals and reductions are going to be difficult to balance, and we have to do things differently, but everyone else, all of our other groups that we worked with are also going to have to do things differently, and so we're going to balance these the same way that we did our athletics and our staffing reductions.
And I know that we've kind of talked about, we're very proud of the 3 A's with academics, athletics, and the arts. We have been spending a lot of time on academics and athletics up to this point. I want to rest assured that information, the amount of work that the finance department has done, not only just balancing the books, getting information, it gets a little bit more entangled as you get up into the high school level when you start looking at student fees, gate receipts, and all of that. And so I just want to make sure that people understand that there's been a lot of effort going into this. Our goal is to try to simplify so that the board can have a digestible way of engaging in this conversation. And so we're going to move forward specifically focused on Fund 10 because that's the operating piece, and we're happy to answer any questions. What we wanted to share with you is a table that starts off with, across the top, is identifying the 2 different schools. Middle school is in the middle column, Prescott High School is in the far right. The highlighted line is the amount of money that is currently invested in those programs for the fiscal year 2024. And we allocated just shy of $18,000 for the middle school performance, and then the high school has 2 performances. They have a 1-act play in the fall, and then the musical, which was High School Musical this year, in the spring. They were allocated $31,500. As you know, every budget we are targeting across the district for departments and schools is about 10 to 15%. You can see that we're projecting a fiscal year 2025 that a 15% reduction would mean that the middle school would receive, based on the taxes we collect, we have a big pie, we have to distribute that across all of the different uses that Fund 10 encompasses, that there would be a reduction to $15,000, and for the high school, just shy of $27,000. Then we're going to talk about Fund 21 in the aspect of how it provides the overall performances. So once Principal Figge and Principal Igo receive their budgets, they have a decision, and they often are working with their staff to identify what type of performance they're going to put on, whether or not it's going to be a junior version or a full bore version. They also have to start to look at how much costs there are that are booked to Fund 10, which means personnel. It also means the materials, the costumes, the paint, the materials for design. And so all of that has to be deducted from the budget that is allocated. If they can fit within that budget, we're all good. If they want to enhance or expand or try something new, then they have a decision to make. And so I'll ask Mr. Figge and Mr. Igo to explain a little bit about Fund 21 and how you use it currently to either enhance, expand, or at least put it into the equation. And then we'll talk about expenses that are the last two rows of this equation.
So the first year that the middle school did a musical, and we did the Disney musical of Frozen Junior, and most of our shows are junior shows. But we actually did our first show on a zero-based budget, and so we fundraised for every penny that we had. Now this past year, we were in about a 50-50 split. We used some of the Fund $10 and some of our Fund $21. And again, our Fund $21, as Dr. Spikuza has listed on there, our fundraising, our gifts, and our grants. Almost all of that comes out of fundraising, whether it is selling stuff at the Prescott Days Parade, or we've started to rent some of our costumes out that we have used from previous shows. We've started to do some of those things that fundraise dollars for us to go into Fund 21. Anything different?
No, the only thing I would add is that oftentimes what we're doing is, as Thomas Stultz, who's our theater director, and Diana Krahulik, who is our middle school director, would tell you, unlike maybe athletics or some of the academic programming we have, budgets are very, very dependent on the type of show that you're performing. So as Thomas would say, you could have a very dancey show, you could have a very set-heavy show, and all of those things will drive up a cost in a certain area. So a very dancey show, you would have more hours that you would need to dedicate for choreography and for music. If you have a more set-heavy show, obviously you're putting more of your general budget from Fund 10 and then potentially enhancing with Fund 21, set materials, set design, lighting, and things like that. So that Fund 21 for us and for the middle school are oftentimes dependent on what we want to do. Knowing a budget from Fund 10 and what we have in Fund 21 allows us to start to plan for next year's 3 seasons of shows.
When you get into Fund 10, we already have booked and approved areas that we have to fund. And so similar to last week when we talked about the level of competition that we were going to do in athletics, and we decided that we would go from 3 to 2 levels, but we still wanted students to have engagement and participation in all of the events, as well as select competitions if we can make it work. In this case, what we're looking at is Fund 10. We have what are called extracurricular activity stipends. There is in the handbook, it is a position that is stipend at $5,100 for fall, winter, and spring. So that comes to any time it's in the handbook in which a position can be filled. By definition, Sue and I have to put the dollars in there because you're saying that that position can run. So at this point, we're talking about that Fund 10 does include information about the permanent full-time employees. We also have our choir director also has a stipend that's in the extracurricular activities page in the handbook. Then you get the purchase personnel. So those are the private contractors where we might bring in a choreographer. We might bring in somebody that can help with tailoring and design. We have individuals that'll do lighting and music board, but those are kind of for hire individuals. And then we have printing and advertising for the playbills. And so historically, both programs, middle school and high school, have worked with our communication specialists to recruit businesses to support and buy ads, and then the ads help us break even on the publishing of those brochures. So tonight what we're looking at is trying to make a reduction, obviously on the overall allocation of Fund 10 towards middle school and the high school performances, but retaining all 3 performance levels. The other piece that we just wanted to talk about on the left-hand side where it's grayed out, you can see that it says expenses. All those expenses are above, but you know that we have to balance a budget. We also put in revenue into the budget. So when we know that there are going to be gate or house door receipts, we have to book those. So we make an estimate. So the gate revenue of $13,000 and $9,000 for the high school are not windfalls. If we project out that we're expecting $10,000 gate, then what middle school really nets out is $3,000. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that you understand that that revenue and expenses, that's why the asterisks are there, is that if we left it at zero for revenue, then what happens is you have these windfalls and then you have these fund balances and you are trying to track what generated that, where it should go, does it go into fund balance, does it go back into theater? Our working arrangement right now is to make sure that it stays in theater. And so what we have been setting up is working with as long as the schools stay in budget, they're good. If they go over budget, they have to either fundraise, get gifts or grants, or they have to use the reserve that might be there. But they can't, just like a district, continue to go over budget and not have a reserve. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood. If you look at the middle school, you would see they're just shy of 15,000. You go, hey, their expenses are 17. Right, they clear $2,000. It's not quite that simple, but in general, the principle is there. The other recommendation that we are putting forward is to keep it straightforward, and a lot of it has to do with personnel and our coordinator having opportunities for other events and activities. Mr. Igo and Mr. Figge have come forward, talked a little bit about how we have that position in the extracurricular handbook, and are proposing that we retain the spring stipend, because that is our biggest event. It's a culmination of the year for our students, usually the most intensive, and we would believe that we need not only internal staffing, but also some external or hiring within. For winter, which is the middle school, we have 2 on-site staff people. They also are receiving and have been fit into the budget to date. And Mr. Igo has agreed that he believes that we could eliminate the full $5,100 from the budget that's dedicated for the winter. And in fall, because of the model that we're now going toward, it was the first year, but very successful, which is a 1-act. It's a very different, but it's a very prescribed amount of time, and it also has captions where we are a rubric where we're getting a lot of feedback. They even break down film of their performance, that we were going to reduce that from Fund 10 and put it back into a $3,000 stipend that would come out of their allotment of $26,000 for next year, or they would have to recoup it through fundraising in Fund 21. But so what we are looking at in the proposal that we have for you is that we want to reduce the fall and eliminate the winter director theater program stipend out of the handbook. This is done slightly by attrition. With the individual our coordinator currently has some additional opportunities, but being able to secure the $5,100 so that we can execute a contract and know that the money is there.
Can we pause there for a second? Does anybody have any questions right now? My head's...
Yeah.
I didn't follow much of that at all.
All right.
To be honest with you.
I thought it was hard to follow too, but my first question was just, because we're talking about reducing 10 to 15% from every budget. We did that with athletics, we did that with staffing, and so what is our arts budget?
So can I, maybe to say it a different way. I think we have 2 sides.
Yeah.
We have the, let's just call it the general budget side, where we have materials, props, costumes, and then maybe set design and our ancillary freelancers. Lighting designer, lower cost.
And most of that comes from Fund 10.
And most of that's coming from that general Fund 10 budget. For example, the high school had about $17,500 allotted for those things for 1-act this year and for the spring music. Then we also had a director of theater that had a fall stipend of $5,100 and then a spring of $5,100.
Also
So-
Fund 10, right?
Also Fund 10. Yep, but separately budgeted. So if you add the two together, we had about a $3,100 altogether cost this year. $31,000.
For the high school.
For the high school.
Yep.
And then middle school had the numbers that you saw up there as well. What we're saying is we would take the entirety of that. And it's being reduced by 15%. The general budget is 15%, that's what you saw up top, but we would do it a little bit differently for the bottom because we don't want to reduce that spring, for us, we don't want to reduce the spring stipend by 15%. That's our highest. That's our highest level of what we're producing. So that would stay at $5,100. To balance that out, though, what you're going to see is fall, that goes from $5,100 down to $3,000. It's shorter in duration. For our students, fewer students are served, it's non-revenue generating. So for us, we wanted to maintain the programming that has historically been there year after year, but we're also trying to maintain what we started this past year. So that's where Fund 21 could come into play, and fundraising and trying to engage with some other stakeholders in the community to see what we can generate, or using our historical Fund 21 budget. But altogether, what you would see is the high school, in that way, is reducing by 15%. And the middle school, by reducing out that $5,100 from theirs and splitting it up, is also going to see a reduction. Mr. Speltz was pushing in to help out the two directors there. He no longer would be helping out with that winter play. He has some other opportunities, but the two historical directors at the middle school are still there. So
And would receive that stipend instead.
we have that stipend instead of having 3 stipends that are playing in. So altogether, 15%.
Sure.
So the opportunities at the high school, they'll still all remain, they'll have one, we would have one in the fall, one in the winter, and one in the spring?
Correct. Across the board, 6 through 12.
Across the board, 6 to 12. High school has 2.
High school has fall, spring, and then middle school has winter.
Okay.
Okay, and then.
Oh, can I ask one quick? I'm sorry. So the Fund 21 that's up there in the, in the matrix, there's an estimated balance of 99 and 3344. That is not a part of the 15,130 and the 26,8.
Not a part of it.
Separate funds. The budgets are, so Fund 10 is the 15,130, 26, and then Fund 21 is what it is.
Yeah, so like this past year, the middle school, we split that 17,800 and used 9,000 of that out of Fund 10, and we used about it was about 7,500 out of Fund 21. So we didn't use all of our allotted 17,800 because we did some fundraising and we had some other things. So.
And your Fund 21, like in athletics, it's your boosters, you guys maybe like your PAC in the community and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted to clarify, because on an earlier version you may have gotten, but Sue and I were working on this even today, is Fund 10 is a true budget, so it's money. Earlier you might have seen that it said Fund 21 budget, but Fund 21 is not a budget. It's a designated bank that's a reserve based on the work that the students and staff are doing to raise or recruit money. That money is volatile, but what it does allow them is, as we make reductions, they still have a choice if they want to enhance something over and above. If they can work it in out of their Fund 21 or raise money, they can do that. It's just at a board level, you don't have control of really Fund 21, and it doesn't impact our fund balance. And the reason that we're here is about fund balance. So I just wanted to kind of explain the difference there.
And then my additional question that goes with this, when I asked about like overall budget, so that's like the activities kind of side of budget, but also part of the arts budget. And Rick, you said that the arts department does include the choir position. And so I wanted to ask, what is the overall arts budget? Because $96,000 is the total projected cut here.
No, for all of this together, right. The other one is overlaps, so I don't have that number for you tonight. I can get that for you, but that overlaps obviously both on the reductions that we made on personnel of trying to hit a certain target where
it just feels like arts is getting hit twice then. Because they're getting hit on the overall staff reduction side as well as this side too. And did athletics have that happen? I mean, I think the only other was the academics. So I feel as though if I were to take the overall arts budget, which is what we were talking about, and let's say it's, you got 2 teachers at the high school, you got 2 teachers at the middle, $96,000 in total seems like a big chunk, more than 10 to 15% of the overall arts budget, and then that's a concern for me.
Yeah, I think, and one of the working principles that we had is tonight is the first night where we get the renewals out to our staff, and then by June 15th, they have to designate that they're coming back. Once that dust settles with, we know how many staff are coming back. We are now done with reductions after tonight with the big areas. Now it's all about budget and departments. We'll be able to come back to you and be able to build towards August of saying, do we have enough funds, and where would those funds be allocated if we have a balanced budget?
And that would be for anything, but the plan for a reduction of $96,000 is different, because we're saying we're not building that into our budget right now. And if we do, just like when we had extra money left over from construction, if we do, we'll come back together, prioritize, where does that go? But right now we're saying we're gonna cut $96,000 out. And I'm just wondering what percent of that budget is it? It's gotta be closer to 25% than 10%, but I don't know.
Well, it's conflated with academics though, because we had to reduce academics, and so arts is also academics, so it does overlay.
But that's where I see that double, it's getting hit twice.
Well,
academics and arts.
It's not a full 2.0.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think that's where the difficulty of, we had to make $650,000 of reductions. Plus, it's very similar to transportation, where the bus routes allow us not to purchase a bus, but then we also now are not going to have a driver through retirement, and we're not replacing.
But that came out of the bus efficiency, not out of staffing.
But when you come down here, you're also counting for transportation reductions.
Right.
So the difficulty is, we have a complex system that overlaps positions both in academics and arts. And right now, to be able to hit the target of the reductions necessary to balance a budget, we have a position that is open. We have a staff and principals that have worked on making sure that programming is still in place, 6/12. If we come back and we have additional money, then we will have choices to make. But right now, that decision has been made with regards to the reduction on the academic side, but it does impact the arts.
Yep.
So the majority of that $96,000 cut is benefits and salary for the middle school
choir. That is correct.
Oh, yeah.
And that music and arts includes elementary, middle school, high school, band, choir, all the teachers? Does that teach those music programs?
Yes, and instruments and repair and the computer programs that Jason uses.
Good questions. Anything else? I mean, do we have more to go through here?
I guess my question too then is, if we don't have, the director, I want to call him Thomas too, Speltz?
Mr. Speltz.
Mr. Speltz. If he isn't here in the winter, I guess that I think is, for me, kind of a concern, and probably for every parent who has kids doing this, is we know he's really, really good at this, and our kids love him. He's great. So not having him here in the wintertime is...
So Diana
So personnel, I would recommend, you're starting to delve into individual.
Can I talk about it in a general sense?
On a position.
Yeah, so in a general sense, I think we have a separation of things that have historically been happening. And we've had conversations with some of our personnel teams here. We had on-site directors, of which one of our people did double duty, and then we had someone who was trying to coordinate the entirety of the program. So make sure that 6 through 12, there was clear coaching, there was support, and that they were very in sync. what would happen is a lot of those duties would be dispersed amongst a lot of us.
Okay.
And the people, those stipends then would truly be for working directly with kids on a program in a play. So we still want to retain the people who have historically been doing all of our plays, but to take off some of the administrative tasks that have historically gone with those things and truly just say, you're getting paid to direct and coordinate the show, not to coordinate the entirety of the PACT and the theater department and the auditorium and things like that.
Okay.
Helen, did you have some questions?
Yeah, so just one. So you talked about that position is now going to, just for clarification, that the position that we currently have would do a high school spring, right? And then would do would be in charge of a winter one act or fall one act reduced, right? And then that would be it, right? And middle school would take over, middle school, there would be another currently. I know that one position historically is no longer here. So is that gonna still be 2 positions?
Yeah, so at the middle school, since we've started, we have always had I'll call it the director and then our assistant director. Sure. And so we've always had 2 people. The past 2 shows, we have had the overall program director that would be that third. We are now just going back down from those 3 positions to just a director and an assistant director position.
Okay, all right. So those positions are gonna be out there and they're gonna be qualified?
Those positions are still there and they're there.
Okay.
And those have come out of either Fund 10 or our Fund 21, depending on what our split looked like for that given year.
Okay.
And our goal is to have continuity with the kids. The adults that have been working with our kids, our first priority to have working with our kids next year as well at each level.
Sure.
And they'll still continue to work within their PLC to make sure that what the skills that they need in high school are going to be built at the middle school level, and so they can continue that continuity 6-12, and it's going to be similar.
Okay, that's where I was confused too. I guess I was looking at, I was under the assumption that the winter was also being done by the director from fall and spring. I didn't realize that we had a whole nother group that had been doing that. We just were then receiving help. You guys were basically just receiving help and the oversight.
Oversight, yeah.
Okay.
And since we have a shared
And
location,
Yeah.
we have a shared location, we have shared sets, we have shared costuming, so making sure that there's continuity between the switchover from fall to winter to spring is really important so that we don't walk into very, very different expectations or very different realities. So that coordinator position maintained a lot of those expectations.
So then you guys are just gonna kind of jump in and help, or how are?
And we're going to rely on the PLC to work together to coordinate some of those things and set, and again, we've had a great coordinator so far for the past couple of years. Who's laid a lot of really good groundwork of what the expectations are, and so now they're, the people that are doing the work are just going to have to continue those same expectations.
Okay.
Can we get down here? Pat, I don't know, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm gonna go to the choir. I'm gonna go to the choir. You guys said that programming 6 through 12 remains in place. At the middle school level, is it reduced programming or is it just creative programming? If that makes sense.
6-12 will be.
You're talking music now, right?
Talking music now. Sorry.
It will be creative programming.
Okay.
And as we talk about creative programming, we'll have, we're not losing classes unless at the high school there's not a proper number of numbers.
Scheduling, maybe is a better way to
Creative scheduling. The one area that we will reduce some in are individual lesson times. So we will not be Department 612 based upon individual lessons as much anymore. Individual lessons will still be able to take place in different hours and in parts of the day, but we won't have a third of anyone's schedule based upon individual lessons.
So the middle school kids will have the same access to the classes and okay, and I don't know, I can't remember. I'm not even that far removed from middle school, but I can't remember what you guys called it. It's not specials, but whatever. Exploratory.
Yeah.
So they'll still have the same amount of options for choir with that.
Yeah, and we actually can expand some of our offerings there, and expand into some general music for kids who aren't as performance-based and performance-driven, kids who don't necessarily want to get up on a Thursday night and sing in front of the entire auditorium being full. Then we'll have some opportunities for them to participate in some general music or other creative type of music ensembles.
And the choir teachers, the teachers that are coming will either come from the elementary or the secondary staffing. Yeah.
We're going to be creative on that one.
And I do want to let you know that the principals just received their final rosters of the FTE that they'll have for next year. Obviously more complicated once you get to middle school and high school to build schedules. Typically the schedules are already built, right? And so the high school, as of yesterday at 4 o'clock, finally knew what his staffing is, unless anybody else leaves between now and June. So now we'll start building those schedules. And so we knew that we would have to come back before August to give you updates on kind of how the programming will play out based on some of the changes that are now in place. So what I appreciate though is that they have at least started those conversations and we have a pretty good roadmap. Now we know exactly that we have 3 staff members that used to be 4 to cover 6-12 programming. We'll come back before August to give you an update.
Anybody else have any questions? Rick, the one question I wanted to just make sure that the middle school choir position that we're talking about, that was vacated by attrition.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that was one of the I guess criteria in the process that we went through to do the reductions was attrition happens, we have to make a decision whether we need to freeze that or if it's absolutely necessary due to whatever reasons we would hire that. But for any attrition that comes off first, so that helps us kind of trim. I understand
and that was to make at least a concerted effort to try to retain as many people as we could that weren't resigning, retiring, or taking another job.
Right. So we take advantage of the savings there first, knowing that this is a position that absolutely is going to be on one of the top of the list. If we can bring it back, we'll have a discussion and decide what are the most important positions to bring back. So I just wanted to point that out. I don't have any. You guys did a great job asking a lot of good questions here. I think I understand where we're at here. It doesn't sound like we're going to have any. We retain all of our programming. Sorry, Kyle.
But he's tired. He's only got one leg.
We were able to keep and retain all the shows, and it's going to look a little different with staffing, but the opportunities are there. And that's I think the message I'd like to just make sure we clarify. So, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Do we have any further discussion as a board on this? Anybody? Do we want to go around and kind of talk through this a little bit?
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I think we're all.
No, what I want to know, I found out, so.
Okay. All right, great dialogue. Where are we at? I gotta find my agenda here. So we have a motion here. If somebody would like to make it.
I move to accept the administrative proposal of reducing personnel. The ECA language in the employee handbook will restrict the fall, winter, and spring stipend. Theater director stipend will remain in full for spring only until a future decision by the school board reverses this decision.
Second.
All right. We have a motion in a second. Any further dialogue on this? We'll do a roll call. We've been doing that for all the other ones, so no further dialogue. Roll call, just say
Aye.
aye or nay, I guess. Helen?
Aye.
Vicky?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. That motion carries. Thank you, good dialogue. Hopefully that's it. All right, we're gonna move on to item H, consideration of Prescott High School business proposal to purchase a sawmill and kiln.
Now, you may go, how does this come to be? But only Kyle Schmidt can help us out on this. But this is creative. Logan and Kyle are
Thank you.
Our teachers with Current Tech Ed.
Thank you.
As you know, we are faced with reducing because of an unsupported operating referendum. These two gentlemen have been working on looking at different ways that we might be able to increase revenue and decrease family fees into the Woods program. And so they're going to walk you through a model that they would like to propose and share with you. What's important is historically they've come before you on proposals about where they could save money and whether or not they could turn it into a profit. And their track record has been impeccable. And so when they came with this proposal, it's kind of gone back and forth a few times because I said, I still don't get it. I don't understand how we're going to truly turn this into a revenue generating piece. And they were able to kind of come back and share with us how that will be. And then they also will talk about grants that would only be enhancements to this proposal. This proposal is not required based on a grant. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll let Logan and Kyle take it away.
Yeah, so what we want to do is we want to purchase a mill and have our construction class build a kiln on site. Kind of thought of this idea 3 years ago, started a business to try and form it, make it easier so that it's just quicker overall. Basically, like we were saying, Dr. Prescott was saying that we want to save money for students. So instead of spending $100 on a project, they would spend $50 on that project. So we're ultimately cutting their project costs in half, right? So if we don't do this proposal, we just go back to what we're doing, right? So with that, as far as like the school, right, we have a way to take how much we spend each year. So if we spend $10,000 on lumber, usually what it was is we would order a particular type of lumber. It would come in. We had a surface charge for that. It was more expensive. So what we did is, where it says the why there and the how, we ended up selling our sander for $8,000 to $9,000. And each year we spent about $1,500 to $2,000 just upkeeping that machine with the belts. They just don't hold up. So getting that out the door, writing a grant, purchasing a planer, that saved us the $500 in surfacing on the wood that we used to purchase, plus that the belts and whatnot. So ultimately, in the last 2 years, the planer money that we had asked for the grant, that's paid for itself. Okay. So still a new machine, working great. So basically, that mill and the kiln costs $25,500. Right, the mill itself is just $14,309.31. Shipping's included there. Right, the kiln structure itself, we're trying to write. We're in the process of writing a Menards grant. That legit has to be handwritten, not typed out, sent through snail mail. So that's going to be a long process, but we're getting the drift that they don't necessarily deny you as long as you handwrite it. But we'll see there. Harbor Freight Grant, we just submitted that about a month and a half ago. That's basically going to help us out with like any of our expendables, and that's something that it's not in writing, but I think we can share that district-wide. So any type of sandpaper, tools, any of that can be covered through that grant. So hopefully we get that one. That's June 11th we find out about that one. Right. So the breakdown on the kiln. So We're writing that grant for $2,000 where it says the structure cost, right? And then I have the heater, 3 fans, the power vent, the oven and the weight scales. Right? That all costs about $10,700. So I think in about 3 years, the entire project would be paid for by the money that we're overturning as far as not spending money on wood, but yet saving money on wood. Okay, so we talked about students purchasing at full market price now. We cut that in half. So $10,000. We also bring in $5,000. That helps us with repairs. Again, also covering our operating costs, tool repairs, and our expendables. So that future cost recoupment, that's basically the nuts and bolts of that one. So then on page 2 there, if you're looking at it like this year, I think we're probably closer to $14,000 to $15,000. If you're doing the math there, right, we're taking in that, or saving that $15,000, and again, you're bringing in $7,500. Just to give you larger numbers now that we'd be bringing in. So our turnaround on a low year is going to be $20,000 that we are saving and earning. And then on a high end, that would be $28,000 based off of the numbers that we've spent on wood over the last 4 years. So kind of doing rough numbers, in 6 years, our turnaround could be between $80,000 and $120,000 saved and earned. So again, project total, $25,500 or $500. And then just talking about things that we've done in the past, we asked for money for the laser engraver. That's paid for itself 3 times. We're doing all the plaques for a lot of our programs here, so we've done well over 100 plaques. In our Wood Tech 1 class, they just made another 160 plaques ahead, so they're ready to go for next year. And so we're saving the school anywhere from $20 to $25 per plaque, 15 on the low end too. So, but yeah, so if we kind of gotten those numbers, so between some of the grant money that we've won and what we've overturned with the tools that we have now, we've saved over $75,000 earned, or that's the saved and earned over the last 4 years. So I think by doing the mill and the kiln project, we can go well above that $75,000. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Pat, I'm going to you. You got any questions here, comments?
Math guy, right. I think I understand. So the upfront project cost, $25,500.
Yep.
Okay. Now, when you guys say the total turnaround though in funding per year, the 20,000 to 28, are you saying that that's a true offset of the 25,500?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, offset with just that easy number of, you got $10,000, we wouldn't purchase any of that $10,000 in wood. So that's just money not spent.
So when you guys say you're not going to spend the dollar, so I know students pay for materials, right? But when you say we don't spend, are you talking about the student dollars, or so is that all part of the math?
So when I say we, the school district doesn't spend the $10,000 on purchasing the wood.
Okay.
So then, in turn, we would charge students 50%. Right. So not only is the school district saving, but students are also saving, even though we're asking them to pay for them.
Yeah.
The difference is we can keep doing what we're doing, and we still pay, and students still pay. So it just helps us build that program, because we're trying to become as self-sufficient as possible, and this is just a stepping stone to, we're trying to decrease those student numbers over the next, 5
And
to
Kyle,
10 years.
just asking the question a different way.
Yep.
The materials that you buy, you spend $10,000 to purchase.
Correct.
Is not covered by student fees.
Correct.
Right, so even though we do charge students, we still are expending Fund $10 to purchase materials that are over and above. Yeah.
Don't say.
So you're saying this offsets year one? Year one?
Yes, if we have, now I'll say this.
With potentially a risk of $5,500?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Risk question, right? So we're adding a kiln and another piece of equipment. Does this piece of equipment, does this go outside? Does it fit inside the building footprint? Where does this go?
Yep, it would fit inside, so in the off-season, so like summers, but that's where we're trying to get that grant money from Menards. Sounds like not many people apply for it. So we're hoping that our construction class, we're going to build on site. We would build everything so that it houses everything we need. So. Okay,
all right. Stupid insurance question, Rick, does that raise any, it seems like it still fits the scope of what you guys do over there, but.
Yeah, it becomes a structure, right? And we'd have to list it, but I don't think I didn't follow up with EMC yet, and we can. But I don't think it would be.
Probably nothing crazy.
I don't think it'd be crazy, yeah.
Okay.
In the training that we were in a couple weeks ago, it was a Saturday, Sunday, it seemed like we're not the first school to do this, so but they're trying to build it for forest management and whatnot.
That's it for me for right now.
Tanya?
No, I think I understand the math, and this is, we have seen you come to us before, ask for investments, and I see it out in the community, we see it all over. Absolutely positive that it's being recouped, the money. But essentially, what we're really saving on is the purchasing of wood for our programming. And then the students will help offset that, and their 50% really will go towards repairs in the future and all that stuff for the equipment and stuff, so, right, okay,
Because you guys will
perfect.
still have to buy raw materials, right? You buy it unfinished.
Correct.
Yep. You finish it in-house.
Yeah. So, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about basically the trees. Where would you, are you purchasing that from, say, loggers around here, or how are you, what type of wood are you looking for?
So we'll take just about any wood,
Okay.
For the most part, as long as it's furniture quality.
Okay.
We still have to have it decent, but the pile back there isn't the prettiest pile, so we can use some pretty ugly wood. The two business cards there that you have, one is Harley Hotchkiss. I believe he graduated from here in 1999. He is in full support, also started a tree business and said, I've got all you need, and also said if we need more help, he knows a lot of people in the industry like myself with people that are also willing to donate.
That's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
if that would be a
Yep.
possibility.
I've seen on social media, it looks like there's been a lot of donations, which is awesome, so.
Yeah, and we just found out from Miss Z that there's a $825,000 grant to remove ash trees in town, so the city is also working with us to bring trees up, so I don't think we'll run out, and I don't want to cut trees forever.
I'm just saying, I have a walnut tree that's just sitting in my yard that needs to have something done with
Which policy is that?
Upfront costs.
She'll have to call this.
What are you needing upfront to get this started? Is that this? The 25.5 is
Yep.
what you're specifically asking for, and then hoping then to offset it a little bit with the grants that you're applying for.
Yeah, we have the 25, so if you go to the second page there, I kind of skipped over this in the excitement of everything, but, so the project total is the 25.5. We have the 10,500, that's in the Fund 21 for Tech Ed, right, that we've raised over the past few years. And I believe that number is a little bit low because we spent some on some community projects that will be kicked back to us. So I think between that and
So then you would use some of your Fund 21 to help offset the cost of the, okay.
yeah. So we're hoping to win a couple grants to
Okay.
really help with that, but we're just asking for, in the case that we get nothing, at least you have the hard number of, it's gonna work.
I think all the number of questions have been asked. I do appreciate the fact that you take the time to write these grants. That's amazing. So you obviously love the program, and I have the plaques at home and all that stuff, and my kids are part of this, so this is great. But there's really no but. I have no questions, and I think this would be amazing. It would definitely reach a different, demographic of children that need that. This is where their passion is, so I think that's amazing. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great proposal, you guys. Really creative. I'm all for it. The bean counting question, I just got to read it. So, from a Fund 10 perspective, we got to approve this, and it comes from Fund 10. But then the thought is we'll be reimbursed for that through the savings and possible grant money.
Which is projected within the 3 years, it'll pay for itself. So that's a question I had, Rick, was just, do we have a space in the Fund 10 balance to, if like worst comes to worst, it's $25,000, right?
Right, correct.
And is that something that we can budget for right now? It's hard when we have all these cuts going on, so I just want to make sure. Yeah.
I really look at this as the kind of the risk reward. They have an opportunity and two people willing to implement it. If we had to, but I do think that you also are covered by Fund 21. So really, to me, the aspect is we would like them not to have to spend Fund 21. Sure. And given that we're building a budget, what I can say is that $15,000 is already what they kind of get allocated for. I think we can commit to the 15. As we build a budget, if we can keep them from having to drain their grants.
Sure, their Fund 21.
Yeah, then that would be great. But I personally would be a little hesitant to say I can guarantee right now we can cover the whole 10-5.
So the $15,000 will come from your budget you already have, and then worst case scenario, Fund 21 has has money in there, okay. That it could fall under.
Yeah, maybe I'll just, it sounds like there's kind of no risk, right? So 15's already in the budget. You're gonna, whether this gets approved or not, the budget's gonna have 15. And if they don't come through with the grants, the 10-5 is already there in Fund 21. We hope it doesn't get, but if it does, it does. No additional money out of Fund 10 would need to be expended then.
Right, and and there's no strings on that Fund 21.
Correct.
Yeah. No, and that's always because we do get the money, and I just wanted to verify that that's true. So.
Okay.
And perfect. Just lastly, I mean, one, we have profession is what he's done his whole life. What he does now, this is just invaluable for our kids. They're going to see this process, they're going to participate in it, and they're going to see it's a whole new thing that we don't do at this school yet. So it's, like I said, it's invaluable for them. So,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, does anybody have any further comments here?
Thank you.
Otherwise, we can entertain a motion.
I'm not looking at the current one.
I move to approve the business plan presented by the Prescott High School principal and CTE department to purchase and outfit the department with equipment to repurpose and produce its lumber supply for student programming.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Every time it says
That
me,
one
just
carries. All right, well done. Item I, high school parking lot, seal coat summer, July 2024.
And I'm going to have Mike Hoyko come on up. As you know, Mike's been doing this type of work for many years for the district, one of the individuals that hit a 5-year milestone. Also, just aside, we started the weekly phone calls and work sessions with Market and Johnson for all the work that's happening already and also into this summer. This project, however, is at the high school. It is not part of the bond referendum. And so, Mike, you can take it away.
Yeah, so on our long-range plans, we have the parking lots listed on there for maintenance, and we try and budget and schedule seal coating and parking lot repairs every 4 to 5 years. Unfortunately, we're about a year earlier than normal for this parking lot up here at the high school. Not last winter, but the 2 winters prior to, we had especially 22, 23, we had lots of snow. And with the snow and the thaw freeze cycle and all the extra plowing, takes the seal coating off. So that's why I'm here, looking to get approval to move forward to crack fill this parking lot, do some repairs, do a 2-coat sealant over all of it, and then of course line painting. So I tried to get three bids. I did get 2 proposals. They're both from companies we have worked with in the past. So.
Pat, anything on this one?
Super hard to get multiple proposals. I'm glad you got 2. The low, you assume is responsible. You've worked with them in the past.
Yes, we have.
Covered. Okay.
Yeah, I think probably 3 times that I know of for sure.
Okay.
So.
And then this is part of the maintenance budget, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
this is not
a
additional
referendum
dollars. This is
project.
part of the budget. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Nothing else. Nothing further.
My question was just going to be which one do you recommend? And it sounds like you have pretty good experience with the lower one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the one you would recommend out of these 2?
Yes, I do recommend ACI.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Vicki? Nope. Helen?
Nope.
Looks good, Mike.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Motion, anyone?
I move to approve the high school parking lot seal coat bid submitted by ACI and administrative recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And item J is athletic equity fee structure for individual and family maximums.
Just a reminder, this is something that you talked about, was it in September or September of this fall? It was well received at the time, but we were concerned about that the fall athletics had already started. So we resubmitted the letter to you. I did ask Andrew just to knock the rust off a little bit with regards to kind of what this proposal is and why we are recommending it.
Yeah, so this will be for all of our activities. So currently, how we have it set up is we have 2 maximums in the district. We have a student maximum of 220 and a family maximum of 425. And what we've seen happen is we have families that have maximums kick in at different times. And so we have some families that are paying more than other families in any given year for our fees. And so I gave you the exact same examples that I gave you in September to illustrate what can occur in the event that things align a certain way with 2 families. This is something that was brought to my attention towards the end of my first year, beginning of my second year, looked at it a little bit, and then we decided to bring it to your attention earlier this year. And so in Family A, we have 1 student who is involved in a ton of stuff. Well, they have a student maximum of 220, and that's what would be paid in that year, which would be 40% of what the fee would be if there were no maximums. The second family would have 2 students that does the same number of activities, 5. The student maximum would kick in, so that would be 220, but then the family maximum would also kick in, and that family would actually end up paying 425. So both families have the same number of activities, but Family B ends up paying a significant amount more than Family A, solely based on how it is structured. So the second page would be if we eliminated the student maximum and kept the family maximum, both families would pay the same amount. This does not impact free and reduced lunch. That would remain. That should always remain. A reduced lunch family is 50% across the board, and a free lunch family is going to be zeros. no charges to participate in any activities. And so when we talked about this in September, the general consensus was, this is a tough thing to do right now. We're kind of started, but now that we're ending the year, we want to have the conversation again. Is this something that we want to talk about going into next school year to eliminate what is currently called the student maximum in favor of just keeping one family maximum that would be applied to all families?
Helen, any questions or comments here?
No, I don't have any questions. We talked about this and it looks fair and it makes sense and yeah, no, I don't have any questions.
Okay, Nikki?
No questions.
Tanya?
I guess I don't have, I don't know, maybe I have a question. So right now we're operating with a student and a family. And we're opting, or you're opting to just have a family maximum, regardless of how many kids you have in the family. So I see it somewhat, I see the equity being in per family, but not in per child. And so like, for example, family A that only has one student, they're paying the same amount if you had 7 kids in the district doing all kinds of activities. So you're essentially doubling the amount in this case for the one family with the one child. So my question really is why not just have like a student maximum no matter how many kids are in your family? So like, for example, you could have 7 kids in your family and you have a student, and I know that gets super high and I understand that, but also it's super high for the one student with family A too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's something that I also looked at initially. I think the concern was if we had just a student maximum. We had a family in town that had a lot of students that were all really involved, and that family would have had a couple of $1,000s in essentially bills because that family, there weren't any reductions. And so the concern would be that family could end up limiting the number of activities that their students are participating in. Because while the student would be capped, if you had 4 or 5 or 6 students all involved, you would be in the thousands of dollars.
Yeah. But essentially, family A is paying a big chunk of it. I mean, they're paying, I know it says 77% savings, but overall, that family A with one child is paying the same amount as a family with 15 activities that they could have combined. And so I guess when I think of equity, I see it equitable if you went for family system, but those aren't equitable in size. They're all different. For individual students, I think it's more equitable to say every student would pay this much as a maximum. But I totally understand, I get the other side of how huge it could cost. But for family A, we're doubling their cost.
Yeah. I think another way to put it, maybe I didn't explain it the best, another way to put it is in both scenarios, the student maximum side, the total family cost would be significantly higher than having a family maximum, if that makes sense.
I don't have any questions. It seems equitable to me. There's no perfect solution. I would maybe say the family with more students are potentially also contributing more. You know how much I love fundraising. I'm joking, I hate it, but they're participating at a whole nother level with that as well. So maybe just a question: the 425, and I'm not hoping to raise fees on anybody, but that was last year's fee. Has it been considered to raise that maximum though?
Yeah, so I think we're going to take a look at everything. I've stared at this for 3 years. I'm not 100% sure where the 425 comes from and like how do we land on that number. So I'm trying to figure out how do you get from 110 and 70 to middle school to 425 being where we land on as a family. So we're going to take a look at all of that. So yes, we're going to take a look at it and hopefully come back ASAP. But this is kind of the first step, decide on what maxims are we going to have in place, and then look at the fee structure and what are the dollar amounts should it be across the board, so that we can no later than July, so that we get into August when we start up, everyone knows what's going on.
Thank you.
I'm guessing it was fees rose. But the family max didn't change, so.
Well, I mean, I think the district's going to be taking in more money this way, right? Because individuals are going to be, I mean, potentially, for sure we should, right? Because there's no way we would be taking less.
Right.
Where anybody that has 1 or 2 kids, like that, you know, whatever, that family A situation, you're doubling what you're taking in from them.
But you could have family C, right, with 4 students, each in 5 different activities, and then the district actually will be paying more. Right, so there's a million different scenarios here.
I agree with that.
I mean, paying more, I hear what you're saying with that, yeah. But I'm just saying, it seems like we are gonna, overall, we'll be taking, kids aren't probably gonna be more likely to do it, because that maximum's always been there. So they're not signing up for more, it's always been there. But we are gonna be overall netting more because of like the individual or the family that has 1 really involved child or whatever. But.
All right, thanks, Andrew. Anybody wants to make a motion, now's the time.
I move to approve the athletic equity fee structure for individual and family maximums. Hang on, what does Steve always say? Point of order here. With the actual motion, we're making a motion to remove individual maximums, right? Or are you guys okay with the motion?
Oh, you should, yeah. I think the wording should be adjusted.
Okay, so maybe.
Really, your motion has not been seconded.
Individual.
Off the table, so if you want to make another motion, that's fine.
I move to approve the athletic equity fee structure for family maximums.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. All right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. Last item?
Get point to order.
No, there's a couple more.
No, we got 2 more. All right. K is varsity baseball team overnight trip.
Yeah, so we're coming to you kind of early on this one, but there's planning to be done and we want to get in the calendar. Opportunity for the baseball program to practice at the Field of Dreams site in Iowa next year, and their calendar fills up quick, so we want to get on the calendar ASAP. This would occur on Friday, May 16, 2025. They would go down that morning, practice there in the afternoon, stay the night, and then we already have agreement with Platteville to play there in a doubleheader on May 17th. And so there is a fee to practice at Field of Dreams, then they provide a meal, you do field work, and it's the actual site. And so it's a pretty cool opportunity for them. The costs associated with lodging, meals, and upgraded transportation is all fundraised. The structure of the overnight is the exact same as the other trips that we have done as well. So with your approval, we would put ourselves on the calendar and then pay the deposit to reserve our space. So happy to answer any questions that you have on this.
Vicki, any questions? Helen?
Nope.
China?
Andrew, remind me, this comes to the board because it's an overnight trip.
Overnight, yep.
Yep. And again, just to reemphasize what you said, this will not come out of any of our budgets. It's going to be fully funded through the baseball program. Thanks.
No questions.
I don't have any questions either. Thanks, Andrew. Take a motion here.
I move to approve the varsity baseball team overnight trip in May 2025.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And lastly, varsity football team overnight trip.
Yeah, so this fall, the program is going to play week 1 at Northwestern. So they would travel down August 22nd. He is going to bring everyone, because we actually worked out a lower level game that will take place at noon on Friday, August 23rd. Varsity will play at 7 o'clock, August 23rd. So they will stay the night, the 22nd, in Duluth, and then spend the day down there. There'll be 2 games. They will travel back after the varsity game on the 23rd. All costs associated with lodging, meals, and upgraded transportation for all student athletes, coaches, and team personnel involved will be fundraised both by the team and the Booster Club. And I know they have already almost got all covered. So that would be week 1 this year, which is before school, so they want to make it kind of a full experience for all members of the program.
Tanya, any questions on this one?
Nope, same thing. It's an overnight trip, so it's coming to us, and it's being fully funded, so not out of our budget, which is great.
Pat?
No questions.
Vicky?
No question.
Alan?
No questions.
I don't have any questions. All right, we can take a motion.
I move to approve the varsity football team overnight trip in May 2025. Oh, hang on.
2024.
And I think the month is wrong too. Okay, there it is. I move to approve the varsity football team overnight trip in August 2024.
That was right.
That was the baseball one, I think.
That's a motion.
Second, sorry.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We're done with business. And we're on information discussion. First one is Act 20, early literacy.
Did they leave the clicker there for you?
They did.
That was nice.
Turn it on and off again.
You must be in IT.
Yep, that's my first.
Whenever you call him, did you try turning it on and off again?
It'll bug. Just reboot.
You're gonna have to suck it up. You're gonna have to suck it up.
I call this the Greek tragedy.
Buckle up, folks. All right, so July of 2023, Act 20 was bestowed upon us by the state legislature, and with implementation starting yesterday, and a lack of funding. So I'm here to just give you a quick update on it. You can read Act 20. There's a link here. This will be on the Teaching and Learning website tomorrow. The full handbook, this handbook is provided by CSA 11 districts. They've been working with DPI to keep it updated. I believe it's 78 slides, along with about 4,000 links. So if you are suffering from insomnia, you could read through that. I initially tried to break this down to about 30 slides for the board, and then I landed on about 8. So I'm just going to give you a really, really high overview of what we're being asked to do by our legislation and all the support we're going to get for it. All right, so first is curriculum instruction, really high level. We are required to provide a science-based early literacy instruction in both universal and our interventional settings. Really, it's all about science of reading, which has been around for about 30 years, but now people are starting to pay attention to what the research is telling us. It's really structured literacy, the shift to structured literacy, which is really teaching kids the mechanics of reading, the phonics, the ability to actually read words, versus balanced literacy. And balanced literacy is really about, can you derive meaning from what you're reading, even if you don't know how to pronounce the word. So that's the big shift that's happened. Legislation has stepped in and said this is what we need to do in Wisconsin. It prohibits us from using something called the 3 cueing system, which is sort of a way of, when you don't know how to read a word, how do you attack it to drive the meaning out of that word? And again, in structure and balanced literacy, if the word was horse but you said pony, you can still get meaning out of that. They'd say the kid knows the word when the kid really doesn't know the word. So that's really the big shift. The Joint Finance Committee approved some resources. So every year there's a committee that was put together through this legislative act to meet and review resources. They created a rubric. They had vendors submit them proposals. They went through about a third of the list that they had gotten because this group did not form soon enough because they didn't have enough time. Anyway, they went through that. They proposed 4. They've approved 4 curriculums that say meet our standard. DPI, in the meantime, gave to the legislation a list of 13 that they felt met the standard, but they were different rubrics, grading different things. So then the Joint Finance Committee said, nope, the only ones we're going with are out of this literacy council that was created. So these are the only 4 that fulfill it. Districts don't have to implement those curriculums. If you have a curriculum that has the 3 cueing system, as long as you don't teach the 3 cueing system, you focus on phonics. Again, a lot of these shifts we've already started in Prescott. We moved to foundational phonics 3 years ago when we saw that our current resource that we had did not have enough phonics in there. Kids were not really learning the reading part of it. What we currently have does have the 3 cueing system. We're just dropping that from the way that of what we teach kids. And that includes both at the universal and the interventional level as well. We can't take our low readers and say, well, for you, we're just going to have you guess at what the word is. Again, there's about 30 slides on that. I just shrunk it down to that one. Reading readiness screeners and diagnostic assessments. This is the fastest thing that we have to address because it's coming next year. All students, 4K through 3, have to be assessed in a reading readiness screener. We already do that. We use FastBridge. The state's saying we're going back to 1 for the whole state. We used to have that. Back in 2015, they got rid of it. We used to have PALs. Districts were said you could use whatever you want. You could even create your own. So some districts decided to save money. They decided, hey, we're going to get into test writing, and we're going to write tests for kids to see if they really know how to read. Didn't work out so well. So now the state's saying, nope, we're going back to 1. No child, no family has the ability to opt out. Students right now, we allow them to opt out sometimes. We also allow them on the state assessments to opt out. The state's saying, nope, can't allow them to opt out anymore. 4K has to be administered twice a year. We currently do that. 5K through 3rd grade has to go 3 times a year. We currently already do that. Anyone who scores below that 25th percentile has to have a diagnostic reading assessment done to dig even deeper. We already do that. We're mandated to do it within 10 days. That probably won't be an issue for us. We, though, as a district, are responsible for selecting, so we all have to use the same screener in the state, but for the diagnostic, we get to select, pay for it, administer it, interpret the results, and then decide what we want to do after that. Districts then need to communicate with families within 15 days of giving the screener how their kids scored and if they're going to be in a reading intervention. We already do that. The 15 days is going to be tight, though. You know, when it was PALS, that screener takes a lot of time, especially down with the littles in 4K, K1. Those are one-on-one tests with a teacher. So back in the day, we would get subs to cover. We know how difficult it is to find subs, and then the time that you lose of instruction to do that. Right now we utilize our aides, our instructional aides, our regular ed aides to do a lot of that for us. Depending on where that lands, your decision on that later this year, that will have an impact. And there are things that we have to communicate to the families. They will cover the screener for 4K through 3. They currently already do that. What they will not cover is the diagnostic. So that's going to be an additional expense for us. Right now, if we stick with what we have been using and we have great success with it, we use FastBridge. We don't know if that's going to be the screener. They say in July they're going to let us know that. It's going to cost about $2,200 to the district per year going forward, additional on top of what we already currently have. The other thing about that is they did change the dates a little bit. They had that this needed to be implemented this fall. They did give us the grace and push it back to January. So starting in January of the next year, we have to, 1, get this new assessment tool, get training on it, and then train all of our staff on how to administer it. So,
they have a lot
so you can imagine what's going to happen on professional development days. But don't worry, there's more. All right, district level requirements. A couple things. We have to have an early literacy remediation plan. I'll be coming to you later this summer to approve that plan, and then we have to post it onto our website and notify families like we do our general notifications in July. Also starting in July, we're going to have to, and again, it's 2025 this one, we have to have a promotion policy from grade 3 to 4. Currently we have 4 to 5 and we have 8 to 9. We're going to have to add a policy on grades 3 to 4. They're going to give us a policy that we could base ours on. In the original Act 20, it did say any student who is not proficient on the Wisconsin Forward Exam in reading must be retained in 3rd grade. And again, as I presented to you guys before, you have to be in the 60th percentile in order to be considered proficient. So that means 60% of our kids would be retained in 3rd grade. So they changed that slightly and now are allowing boards to create your own policy. Part of that will be is if they are not proficient, then what are we continuing to do with them in subsequent years to still meet their needs, including what we already offer is remedial summer work. They're not clear yet on is that optional or is it required for families to participate in. They also required, all districts are required to have a reading specialist, and they have I believe it's like 12 things in statute that they are required to do. They've added 5 additional duties to that job description. So do more with the same. This is kind of what we're being told. Required training, here's the big one. So all of our staff, including our principals, our reading specialists, our reading interventionists, all have to have training. The statute requires 5 K through 3 have to have this training. For us, that's about 21 staff. From a teaching and learning perspective, and I'll ask you guys to weigh in on this later, I really think it behooves us to train all of K-5. So that would be approximately an additional 9 staff on top of that. That would come with an additional cost. There are some requirements to the training. One, Sarah Dusick has to be trained by July of 2025. We have to start the training by July of 2025 for all of our other staff. So really we have this year or next year that we have to do this training. Universities are also being required that anyone new coming out of the university is trained already. For us, some of the training, it has to be over 6 days. That's a requirement in statute. They gave us a list of things that we can pick from. There are a lot that would take multiple years to actually do the training and thousands of dollars per individual. Some of the most economical ones are somewhere between $14,000 and $22,000 additional dollars for us to do this training. Speaking of one of the economical options, and I'm only going to give you option A today because I also want you to weigh in on some of this training of who do we want to train. But some of the CISAs have been approved to provide some of this training, which they hadn't been previously. CISA 11, our CISA has a cohort starting this summer. There's August 15th is a virtual kickoff, but then there are full days. And you can see some of those dates, September 24th, December 12th, April 16th. Those are within the school year that we currently have. And then June 10th is outside of the contracted school year. So on top of the cost for the actual training of people, there could potentially also be a cost for if we have to buy a day of professional development or provide a stipend to our staff for doing this. Other option would be, I know there are some schools that are kicking around the idea of that this really is a requirement for the teachers, and they're putting it all on the teachers and saying, in order to keep your job, you need to go and get yourself trained. You pay for it, you use personal time, and you figure it out. I hope that's not the route we would go, but I just want to throw that there are options out there, and I'll bring some options back for you. The admin one costs a little bit more. It takes a little more to train Sarah than the average teacher. Her dates are totally different. So even though we wouldn't necessarily get a substitute principal for the day, just knowing that that would put more pressure on the system and the front office staff, the other principals, Sandy Strand to fill in and cover for our administrators when they're gone as well.
And Michael, so going back, those dates, right, that are already kind of laid out, do they fall on instructional days?
The September, December, and the April 16th are all instructional days for our teachers.
And the costs up there are?
That's just for the training itself, not if we're looking at substitute teachers, not if we're looking at anything else. So coming with these options, will be a calendar adjustment that potentially will need to get made. Purple are the teacher ones, and those are the ones that we're more concerned about than the admin ones. The admin ones are in blue, not that we're not concerned about those. Right now, this is overlaid on our current approved calendar for next year. But you can see this day in September is a Tuesday. That would be a Tuesday where all K3, potentially K5 teachers would need to be off-site at CSA 11. So the incurred cost of traveling up to CSA 11 vehicles, maybe a bus, that all goes into the district cost as well. So you can see the purple ones are the September, here in December, April, and then actually this June one is outside of the contract in the potential summer school. So it may have an impact on our summer school dates. I know originally we talked about trying to eliminate butting up against July 4th weekend, but that might not be something we can control. So I just bring this to you. I'm not giving you this as a proposal today, just knowing that proposals are going to come. And then I do have some additional questions about this, like are we going to treat this as a K3 issue? Is it a K5 issue? Are we going to treat this as a district issue? Do we look at those days and turning off days on the calendar and pushing the end of our school year? Are we looking at differentiating between the buildings? Does the secondary have school on those days where the elementary would not? Does the entire district turn into a distance learning day on those 3 days that are currently within the building or within the calendar? So that way there is some ancillary supervision at home for the elementary kids that might put less stress on families. So those are all the things that we need to think about, put into a calendar, figure out the DPI minutes and things like that. So on top of all the training and all the other stuff, the fiscal, it's also the human side of this takes time to communicate, this takes time to figure out different options. Funding, our legislatures will say they are funding this. One of the things that they are funding is if we were to purchase one of the recommended materials from the list, again, there's only 4, they will have a grant reimbursement for up to 50% of the cost, but it will be prorated based on how many districts are asking for reimbursement, and it also will be prorated on how much money gets allocated to this. As of right now, for the entire program, including hiring coaches to go into low-performing districts, about $1 million has been released from the Joint Finance Committee to fund this. If this goes through, if we were to get up to 50%, they're already telling us you would not see any of those dollars until fiscal year 2026. So I know our legislators will say they're supporting public schools. We're putting more money into schools than before. Well, the money they're putting into this, right now in the bill it says $50 million, would not cover the cost of the diagnostic. It would not cover the cost of our training. It would not cover most of this cost. Half of the curriculum it would not cover as well. What they have said is, here are different title funds that we get. You could allocate your dollars. So this is a sample district of how can you pay for these things. But what I want to stress to the public is that there's no new funding. What they're basically saying is whatever you spend these dollars, these title dollars on right now, shift it. Don't spend it on Title IV. We spend that on mental health and social emotional learning. Nope, turn that off and spend your money on Act 20. So that's basically what they're telling us is we're funding it. The way we're funding it is through what we are already getting. You just need to budget differently. And then what Dr. Spicuzza is alluding to is that there's a few lawsuits right now. One from the GOP lawmakers against Governor Evers, and then a counterclaim of Governor Evers against the Joint Finance Committee. He used a line item veto. They're arguing that that was not okay because it dictated how the $50 million were to be spent. He's saying the $50 million was already part of this literacy program. They should release it. And if they don't, then he should have the right to veto the entire bill. So he may end up vetoing that entire $50 million. Either way, it doesn't really matter for us because we're being told you have to implement all these things under Act 20 starting next year, with or without the money. And again, the money that's there won't be a lot when you take $50 million and you spread it over coaches, committees, resources, and then all the districts that are trying to do this at the same time.
So that's a lot of information, and this is just the appetizer, because there's a lot to unpack here. Michael will be here through Teaching and Learning each month. It'll be a regular standing conversation about, are we training legally? We have to train K-3. Administration and through Teaching and Learning, we believe we should encompass K-5. We have to figure out if we can make that work. I think it's in the best interest of our students. But you have to have some questions circling your head. And I'm just curious, give us some feedback so that when we come back next month, we're making progress on, you heard a lot of information, but it's from, some things are stipulated, it's fixed. We can't really get out of it. But it's early literacy, you can't argue with, right? 85% of this, Prescott Public Schools already does, and does extremely well. But what other questions or things you would like to hear from Teaching and Learning or the administration?
Tanya, you want to take this one?
Well, I mean, Minnesota's doing the same stuff right now, so I'm pretty familiar with this and start my training too. I guess I would encourage all of the staff if that was the option and stuff. I mean, even not just, like the classroom teachers, there's other staff that might need to be supporting this as well, so licensed staff in general. I know that CISA is offering this training, and it seems convenient because it's through our CISAs, but I would wonder if we need to be looking elsewhere, because we would be shifting our we'd be shifting our calendar, a lot of days on the calendar. There happen to be like Tuesdays and Thursdays, which would be hard to build in a takeoff day, or it's odd. So there's got to be some other options out there for the training. I don't know if how difficult that is.
I know of 2 of the other trainings, and they include weekends and weeknights for staff.
And they have to be approved trainings, you said?
Yeah, there's a list of, these are the trainings you can pick from. And again, some of those trainings range all the way up to a few $1,000s per person. But one of the things we've talked about is, like, do we take our reading interventionists and we do give them a higher level of training, maybe in Orton Gillingham or in some of these other ones that maybe also take longer, but will overall be a better training and better experience then for them and the students.
Well, and that's where I know CISA has worked, because we've been talking about this for months now at CISA. And they can keep our costs low for training because they can write grants. All of their funding comes through grants. So they know that schools need this, and their idea is to keep the costs as low as possible for districts that belong to CISA 11. So I think we need to take full advantage of it. I think it had been brought up before that we had talked about this up at CISA, is you get individuals trained by them, and then those individuals come back and then could possibly train other teachers. Is that still something that could happen?
So that was posed to the DPI, and they said that would not fulfill the letter of Act 20. Every individual has to have their own certificate from the company that they've completed the training.
Sounds like a great business plan.
Not a train the trainer.
Well, so does not taking suggestions from DPI on 14 programs and just saying, no, you have to go with these 4.
Well, those you can do any program you want. Those are just the 4 DPI said went through our rubric, and we would reimburse for those. You can pick any of the others. You're just going to get 0 reimbursement.
So I know Vicki said that we should definitely take advantage of it, and I'm not at a definite take advantage of CISA. I I think we have to really weigh our pros and cons. There's more to this than just cost. The disruption in, first of all, it's way late in our calendar. The disruption in what it does for hiring substitutes. So those are days lost of learning. If we are hiring not that they're lost of learning, but it's not the same learning if substitutes come in.
We're probably not going to find 15 substitutes.
We're not distance learning. We're not learning the same. It's really disruptive. I don't know. There's probably some reasoning behind why CISA decided to do it in the middle of the week, but it's hard when you're trying to build a calendar around middle of the week days off. I also, we talk about, like you asked, elementary, do they just have it off or their learning looks different in the high school? But we've talked about that before, and there's a cost that CISA does not offset with that, which is the transportation cost, that you're now running transportation for half of your district, all of that changes. And so those, we're not saving any money on those ends either. So those are things I think we should look more at. I don't know if there's better options. If there's only 4, that's not a lot. I hope they open up more. And yeah, I also, is this something that has to happen every handful of years? Is this a one and done, or did they say anything on that yet?
It should be, in terms of the training of the staff, it should be a one and done, because everyone coming out of programs, the programs are now at the college level required to provide this training. So it's just the staff that you currently have.
Okay, because that would be going back to like not a lifetime license that we have in Wisconsin.
Right.
You'd have relicensure hours.
And for us, where that might be is if someone's coming from Minnesota to our elementary school and they have a Minnesota license and they did training in Minnesota because Minnesota's doing a lot of the same things, does that also fulfill the Wisconsin requirement, or do they have to get trained again?
And that's where I see CISA makes more sense then. We're sending our 1 or 2 people every year, or however many people every year, but to shut down our calendar, do it over middle of the, I think you have to wait.
Ms. Dusick and I talked about is, we don't have to have everyone trained until July of 2025 is when we have to start it. So do we do a partial staff this year and a partial staff next year? And that would probably be less disruptive in the calendar of having to turn a day completely off versus having five subs.
So do you know where the other trainings are at?
Most of the other trainings are virtual online ones that you do, and you have your own coach and you have specific dates that you go in.
That's hard.
I wish I could remember that. My wife just did the Orton Gillingham, and that one takes like a year to do that one. And you have to record yourself working with kiddos. They give you feedback. And then there's another one, but it's a 2-year program. And that one's like 200 hours. So that goes above and beyond what this CISA 6-day thing would be. But again, there might be staff like our interventionists that we would really want to push that way. And then what do we have to entice them to want to stick in a 200-hour program over 2 years and give up weekends and weeknights?
Michael, did you say there was a requirement on the minimum amount of days this training is?
Minimum of 6 days.
And CISA's I see is only 5?
No, there's fulfills. I think there's a virtual kickoff day that technically counts.
So it's not on the calendar, maybe? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Ellen, do you got any questions?
No, my other question was the online component. I know that there's other districts that are doing online.
Yep, top 10 schools for teacher training. I heard that one is the feedback I'm getting. It's acceptable, meets the letter of the law. That's what we're looking for.
And that's also, I believe it's a kind of a January to whatever, but that was done at your own pace, you know, and so like districts have been doing a stipend. I would like to see financially how that would look for us to do an online training like that and then provide a stipend for the teachers. And then also breaking it up, because I think the other districts are, like you said, breaking, like you do K through, like there's 5 or 25 people in this cohort, 25 people in this cohort. Like if that would spread out, and if that would help us budget-wise.
Right.
And then the K5, like if we chose that, what the K3 price tag would look like versus the K5, like how much that would be. Because K3 is what we're...
Right, we're required K3, do we add the 4 or 5? Yep. And financially it doesn't make sense. Yep. Got it.
Pat?
Anything?
Michael, when you say that if you don't pick one of the 4 training programs, you don't get funded?
So that is the curriculum, the resource.
Okay.
There are 4 approved resources that if you adopt those resources, there's going to be a non-competitive grant from DPI. They said the max you will get is 50%, but there's no guarantee of 50% because as of to date, $0 have been put into that grant. So if the legislation puts some in there, then it's going to be every district that adopted gets to apply, and then they're going to prorate it. So if they've got $10 million in there and there's $40 million of, requests, then every district gets a quarter of what you requested.
Okay.
Yep, so that's for the actual curriculum itself. And then this other is there's 12 different options of training because there's a training component which isn't on a curriculum, it's just on structured in the science of literacy training that many of our teachers did not go through because that, again, it was balanced literacy was what we went through, not through.
So the training is going to be a cost no matter what, right? I mean,
correct. Yep.
We'll pick the right, but on the curriculum, does that require, I mean, could you gamble that there isn't going to be really any funds anyway? And is there money to be saved or not really? Are you got to pick one of the 4?
Currently, and every year that committee is going to come up with their list. So I think there was something like 30 that got submitted. They only had time to review, I think the number was 9. Out of those 9, 4 met the criteria. So now they're working on a process for the ones that didn't meet the requirement to make an appeal of why, can they address some of the issues or deficiencies, but then they still need to review the rest of them. So every January, there's going to be a new list that's going to come out of approved curriculums. And again, it's up to you if you want to adopt them or not. I'll just say that in teaching and learning, like our reading curriculum that we have at the K-5 level, we really needed a new one about 3-4 years ago, but we knew science of reading, structured literacy was coming out, so we've been kind of kicking the can down the road, waiting patiently, and we don't know that next year is the year to purchase. I think next year is our year to start looking and looking at potentially a purchase with our newly trained staff the following year.
Because if I remember correctly too, this is only if you purchase a new curriculum. It's not, you're not going to get reimbursed if you've already purchased one of the approved.
Yeah, there was a date like March 11th of 2023.
Yeah,
yep.
that's what I
That's when the date started. So some districts were early adopters and last summer they bought. They're not going to get reimbursed. What they can possibly get a reimbursement for is if there's ongoing student handbooks every year. So the new years they could potentially apply for.
This light's right.
So maybe looking at, sending Sarah and the interventionist possibly.
Yeah, they're required to get trained by next year.
Yep, so get that done immediately, and would that impact you think would be much easier to absorb into the school day and not?
Yeah, because typically, like if an interventionist is gone for the day, a sub cannot come in and step in and do a tier 3 reading intervention. Right. Typically, we just don't have intervention that day for those kiddos. Yeah. You saw in the calendar there, it was 3 days that would be impacted as well for those kiddos, but those aren't typically sub days. It would be Sandy Strand working out of Sarah's office, or me, coming up, jumping up to that building if they have a behavior problem or something like that. So that's a lot more easy to manage. It's really the teachers and how do we meter them out over the next couple of years, and then the differentiation of our interventionists, our reading specialists getting a different training than our general classroom teacher versus our special education teachers, and what also best fits their needs versus just, is it a check off on a sheet of paper? Which might come with a slightly higher price tag, but probably a higher quality of training and experience for our kiddos.
Michael, when did decisions need to start being made?
Yesterday. That was one of my questions I have for you. If it's something with calendar, if we really got to look at getting creative with the calendar or making an adjustment to next year's calendar, do you need options June, or is July still feasible to announce 2 months ahead that we're going to have to make an adjustment on these days in this next calendar year.
I think we have to. I mean, I think we have to. We can't be rushing into decisions in June. That doesn't seem like enough time at all.
Right. So
we have to.
But also July, I mean, teachers are coming back the next month, so it's not a lot for them either.
Right. So in my mind, I was thinking like June, I'd bring you proposals, information discussion like this. In July, you guys would be taking action on one of the 17 different options I give you.
Are you getting input from like the PLC leads and all that?
Yeah, we have you're right, Sarah's identified a group that we have that we're working with. Interventionists, we met on the last PD day. We actually went through this slide deck with them, asked questions that they had and things like that. So yeah, we're trying to get feedback from as many stakeholders as possible because that's where the impact's going to be, is their training and what they're doing with kiddos.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Michael. That's an uphill climb.
Yeah, thank you to the board for giving us some feedback. I did share with Michael that it will be a standing item because you'll see layers of this onion. If you didn't think education was highly regulated, I hope that you just understood that we are highly regulated institutions. You can see the old adage to how do you define a camel? It's a horse put together by a committee. This Act 20 is well intended, but is really going to be disastrous on the implementation. But I'm proud of both the curriculum and teaching department for what they've been able to do. We are going to transition now to Mike Waika. He's going to give you an update with regards to some of the construction projects that are already in place. We had a meeting, like I mentioned earlier today, and we'll continue to meet on a weekly basis every Wednesday.
All right, so we started some of the construction already, trying to get a head start. We have a lot to do this summer. Down at the middle school, the 1220 street location, the backup generator is set on site, not hooked up. They're starting to do some rough-in on that. The 3 boilers and the 2 main circuit pumps, those will be done in June. They also have started doing some saw cutting and stuff for the new electrical service coming into that building. There's a new electrical switchgear that we're putting in. So they're getting the pad poured for that. Also in June, we'll start the replacement of the kitchen hood and install a new fire suppression system on that. We have started on the complete roof replacement. They'll be back May 20th to be full swing on that and hopefully wrap that. That's a large project. Hopefully wrap that up into June. And along with that, we're replacing all the exhaust fans, any roof dampers and hoods. It's an increased insulation that's going in, so we have to raise the parapet around the edge of the roof and all that. Continue some tuck pointing and brick repair. And then, of course, we talked about a month or two at one of the meetings about installing those metal panels on the west side of the building. That will start right away in June also. And then we just got finalized the track project, and that will start as soon as track season is over, if they want to get going on that. So a couple other items with just pending relieving is like the bleachers and locker rooms, depending if money is available when we get done with this other stuff. So, and then I did kind of a summary of 2023 on there for you to review. Also, elementary, we're replacing all the windows in the 1988 and the 2001 wings. We're also going to have a lot of HVAC upgrades over there. All the univentilators in the 2001 wing classrooms will be removed, like we did in the 88 wing. New rooftop units and VAV boxes. Our gym, we will also be putting in 2 new air handlers with air conditioning in that gym, which is also used as the lunchroom. Roof replacement over there will take place on majority of the building. 2001 roof, the 1982 roof, and the 1963 areas. Also in that building, we'll be taking all the acoustic ceiling tile out and replacing with all new. Along with that will be all new LED lighting and fixtures. There's also some upgrade to the electrical switch gears and some electrical panels that were put in 1963. They're a Bulldog brand, which is no longer in business, can't get parts for. They did start some of the rough-in and digging for some of that switch gear has already been started. So on that, and we're finalizing the remodel and move of the main office to 2 front classrooms. So we should have that kind of finalized here by the end of the month.
Is that moving forward, Mike?
Huh?
Is that moving forward as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we just got to finalize some details that, so when the guys get on site, they know exactly what to do. So.
Okay.
There's a lot of moving parts just to an office with the PA system and the clocks and the nursing and the plumbing and the sinks and everything that goes with it. So, intermediate school at 125 North Elm, we are one boiler's already been demoed out. We will start demo on the other boiler starting May 20th, and then of course the circulation pumps to follow. Down there we have a lot of HVAC upgrades going in. The top floor is getting all new unit ventilators with air conditioning in all the classrooms up on the top floor. A lot of the other rooms will have updated unit ventilators. If they had air conditioning in the past, they will still continue to have air conditioning. We're replacing the condensing units outside to the new Freon gas, because the R22 that's down there, you can't get it to replace it, so we're replacing those units, plus most of them are the 20-year or plus vintage, so they're time to go. Also, adding an air conditioning coil to the gym and in the existing air handler that's there. Then we'll replace unit ventilators in the locker rooms with AC also to control humidity and stuff in the summer. Also, all emergency lighting and exit lighting, so the egress lighting and all the hallways and stairwells will be replaced. All the exterior lighting will all go to LED. Replacing some flush control valves on the urinals. There's some older electrical panels we'll also be upgrading, and any upgrades to the electrical service that we need to do to handle the air conditioning on the top floor in the gym. Some of those concrete pads, they're going to be pouring for some of the stuff that's got to set outside probably next week. And that building will also get a whole new fire alarm system. So 3 of our buildings will have the same complete fire alarm system. So that's kind of a quick summary. I don't know if anybody has any questions on last year's stuff or this year's.
Anybody have any questions for Mike here?
Mike, with all the HVAC stuff, remind me, do we have a commissioning agent that we're hiring, a third-party commissioning agent, or is everything kind of being run through Mark and Johnson?
It'll be run through Mark and Johnson. Train, a lot of it's going to be Train equipment. Train will be doing new software upgrades at all the buildings, and making stuff is operating. There's not like a full-blown commissioning operations. It will be them getting up and operating. Most of it will be kind of fine-tuned between myself and Train doing that. But yeah, the stuff will be all operational and operating.
Sure. And then just, you're comfortable with the test and balance and all that stuff?
Everything will be tested balanced.
Okay.
There will be a third party for that balancing to make sure that we have all the proper airflow in the buildings, so we don't create a negative air pressure. We're sucking moisture into the building, so yeah.
And then maybe a similar, remind me what we're doing, roof inspections. Do we have a third-party roof inspector, or what's happening with the roof replacement stuff?
Well, before we started this project, we did have a third party come in and do a roof inspection of the 3 buildings. And then when so that was already done. So that's why the roof down at 125 North Elm, we did not do anything with that. We're gonna get more years out of that than we anticipated, so we're gonna let that one go. And that's why we're only replacing at the elementary what we need to replace there. And of course, the middle school 1220, that was a complete roof. All these roofs have to be installed. We're asking for a 25-year warranty.
Okay, so they got to meet the manufacturer.
They got to meet.
Quality. Yep. Okay.
So the manufacturer, one, it has to be an authorized installer of the material. Mark and Johnson will oversee that. And then, so whatever product they're getting it from, they will come back out and they will inspect and say, this meets the 25-year.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody questions?
No questions.
Maybe one for you, Rick. Just remind me, so the referendum dollars that are going towards this, when do we have to use those all by? Do we have it's like a 3-year time frame?
Yeah, if there's timelines, I don't want to be, I'll give you conceptually what it is. So it's within 5 years of approval, and I think 3 years once you start, and I can get the exact dates on that. Okay. We are currently in year 2.
Okay.
And we'll have expended, at this point, a majority of it. We will get an update. What we're really looking at is contingency, and it's the roof where we currently are at 1220. And we had a couple heart attack moments, but it's still on budget, and they didn't have to use contingency, confirmed today, so that's good. And they're the same unit that's going over to Malone. So what we likely will have is any residual would come out of contingency that won't have to be spent, and that would be when we would come back with any other items, but we've already kind of earmarked the locker room and bleachers were the next two.
Yep. Okay, so we have time. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Thanks, Mike.
Mike, we do have one concern on this side of the table. Can you explain the hypnotic swaying?
Oh, yeah.
That's to let you know you got really good airflow right there.
But not over there.
Usually they put tape or something to see that it's working.
Yeah.
Do we have maybe a duct leak or?
There might be, it's got to look at the controls of that. It might be just putting out too much air. So
we're just trying to.
All night, it's just been.
Kind of swaying.
Kind of that American Cruise Line.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Andrew has two quick, of course, analytics, name, image, likeness. This should be very quick because of the ruling, but you know that it has an impact, and then we're going to roll right into the next item, which is an activity code. First reading.
Yeah, so just quickly, as you know, last week or the week before, the NIL legislation failed 170 to 219. So now, so nothing's changed. We're in a position now, we're going to wait to see what happens. Best case scenario, we go back and try again next year. Worst case scenario, the legislature or the courts force it, which is probably more likely. All of our bordering states allow it, and that's just kind of the direction that we're going. So I think it's something to be prepared for as we move forward. We were one of the 170. Ultimately, there was nervousness about going in that direction, even though that's where we're going anyway. So let's update on that. I'll keep you posted. We'll just kind of find out one day if it goes in that direction. So any questions on that?
Anyone?
Okay. So this is the first reading of proposed changes to the activities code. Next month would be action. The registration for fall would open up shortly after the 4th of July with everything starting in the fall in August. So that's what we're coming to you now. Not a ton that's going to rock the boat, hopefully. So it's going to start. Feel free to stop me and we go to each one, or we can just wait till the end. So the first one, under athletics, This one is really more just for approval for me, just blanket approval to grant me permission to adjust the activities code to comply with a change to WIA rules. And then if a change occurs, the change will be noted to you in writing and then presented in information and discussion upon request. Justification is it would be in a compromising situation to have our activities code contradict WIA language, and sometimes Board of Control can make a change that we have to pivot, but then our process does take 2 months. So this would give me permission to go ahead and make that change in the event something does need to be changed immediately. So it wouldn't necessarily get written in here, it just is your permission through Dr. Spacuzza to allow us to make a change. Second thing would be under scholastic eligibility. This is under grades. The current rule is if a student fails 3 or more courses, they would be ineligible for the preceding grading term. What the proposal is a student receiving 3 or more failing grades in the preceding grading term, we declared ineligible for 50% of total interscholastic contests of the sport the student is presently participating in, or 50% of the total interscholastic contest in the next season the student will participate in if the season starts during the following grading term. So there's 2 main reasons for it. One was equity. We had a situation this past year where we had 2 middle school students. Middle school student A failed 2 classes, had to sit out 20%. Middle school student B failed 3 or 4 classes and only had to sit out 1 contest because of where the grading term ended. And so that didn't really sit well with me, that a student failed more classes and only had to sit out 1 contest, where the other student had to sit out 3, I believe. And then the other thing we've seen at the high school is in 100% of the cases when a student was told that they had to sit out for the entire term, they have left the program. And so, and then the behavior changes we were hoping to see, we obviously didn't see them because they didn't stick around. And so the hope is by giving them an opportunity to compete at some point, they'll stick it out. 50% is still a lot. They're going to have to stick it out for a long time to be able to participate, but it does give them a little bit of hope. So those were the 2 justifications for that change.
And it's contest, so they could still practice with the team during that.
Yeah, this is just contests. Also under scholastic eligibility, this is an addition.
Hey, Andrew, does anybody have any questions on anything that we've just talked about? Any concerns with that so far? No? Anybody? No. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
This would be an addition. So in situations where the WIA suspension is greater than the suspension outlined in this code, the WIA suspension will be enforced, and the suspension in this code will not be enforced. This doesn't happen a lot, but we do have to enforce WIA rules if it is greater. Most of the time, our code is actually harsher in WIA rules, where this comes into play is in the fall. The fall, because the seasons start before the school year, WIA has a different grid for suspensions, and they are generally going to be harsher than our activities code if it's more than 2 failed courses. And so a lot of times I have to really explain it to families and try to explain why it's not 20%, it's actually a different suspension. So this would actually be beneficial to have this in here so that it's clear that we have to do something different. Under definitions, we have amateur status. What I'm going to add, this is something we were going to do anyway, but I would just recommend we do it for NIL. So if NIL profiting becomes permitted, it will remain prohibited until action is taken by the PSD school board to add rules and regulations to this code. This would only come into play if the WIA actually passed it. If the courts or the legislature did it, we actually couldn't hold it. So if we put this in the code and the legislature says you have to do it, the courts say you have to do it, we have to do it. But we were going to do this anyway. If it passed, it gives us time to put something in place so that we don't have our families and students just kind of going nuts with it, not really realizing they could be doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So it does give us a little bit of wiggle room.
But this ad piece would only apply if it was through WIAA versus legislation, then this ad. Can we just add that in there? Maybe is if WIAA approves nil, then, because otherwise this isn't, it doesn't apply.
Yep. You can add that.
There's a word missing there.
Next edition will be under attendance. This is something that's been a little bit of a challenge, at least every fall I've been here. So the addition would be bona fide homeschool students in grades 6-12 who meet DPI and WIA requirements to be considered Prescott students will be permitted to participate on PSD athletic teams. All WIA bylaws must be followed to be granted eligibility. Students enrolled full-time in 6th grade at St. Joe's will be permitted to participate in all middle school athletic programs that allow PMS 6th graders. All eligibility rules will still apply. Students enrolled in online programs not associated with PSD will not be permitted to participate in athletic programs. So there's 3 things. 1, homeschool. DPI does not require homeschool students to register until October. However, the WIA requires me to ensure that homeschool students meet certain criteria, and one of those criteria is they must be a bona fide homeschool student, which means they must be registered with DPI and live within our boundaries. We've had issues every fall. We had the executive director at WIA had called me because we had a situation where we had a parent calling them because we wouldn't let them participate because they wouldn't register. If we let them participate because they wouldn't register and then they register in October and they weren't an actual homeschool student, everything they did in the fall, we forfeit. So we require them to register. Yes, we're not required to register by the state until October, but they want to do sports, they have to register early. That's just the way it is. So we have to require that.
But they could be enrolled with us and then choose to register later for homeschool.
Correct. And they might not actually be a homeschool student.
Right.
Because I'll jump to the bottom bullet point. If you're in an online program, you are not considered a homeschool student. You're actually
in a district.
You're in a district, and it's not Prescott. So if you play for us in an online program, you're actually not one of our students, therefore you're not eligible. Therefore we played an eligible student. And other districts have done that, and they've had to forfeit football seasons. So we're doing it right. It's a fight every single fall. So by putting it in our activities code, it's just helpful. The middle bullet point's not a fight at all. It's just an acknowledgement that we do value St. Joe's. They can participate. They just got to be full-time there as a 6th grader. And they can only participate in sports that we allow our 6th graders to participate in. And so this would also be very helpful to put in there so that I can just continuously emphasize this is why we do this.
And can we add 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in there then too? Because I know what your intention is, but it would be 6th and 7th grade, for St. Joe's, right? Because if they're in 7th grade, they could also participate?
Oh, they go.
Oh, they only have 6. Gotcha. I thought they had 6, 7.
Yeah.
I'm also excited you've figured out a way to work bona fide into this, because I don't see that word used, those 2 words used enough.
No, and just to clear the record.
It's only in there because it's in the WIA manual.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Because I said it was my word he stole, but no, it's actually a WIA bona fide word. So that's why it's in there.
So I hope that makes sense on why we have to address homeschool students. They're absolutely welcome, but they actually have to be a homeschool student. They actually have to live in our boundaries. If those 2 things are not true, they cannot play for us. And if they do, and we find out later, we got issues that impacts every other kid in that program. Let's see. The next items are pretty much the same things we've talked about, but they're under performance activities, clubs, leadership. So a scholastic eligibility, it's the same thing. It's the 3 or more failing grades. So instead of the entire term, it's 35 days. So it's the same equivalent. So they're not going to be out for the entire term like the current code says. Same justification. And then under attendance, we also do allow homeschool students to participate in other things outside of athletics, but they actually have to be a homeschool student, so we're going to apply the same rules. If they're registered with DPI, they live within our boundaries, we know they're a homeschool student, they can do other activities within our buildings, not just athletics. Theater, speech, all those things, if they're truly follow these things. So we're going to add it under this section as well. Same justification. And those are the proposed changes to the activities code this year. The only recommendation I've received so far from you is just adding for NIL that it's only if it's WI approved. I can make a note if it's approved by any body of government, it's happening. Outside of that, if there's anything else you have for me, this would come back to you in its current form with that change for action in June.
Any questions or comments here? Good job, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And I think lastly on the long list of items here is the update on the board-approved budget reductions.
So just wanted to kind of recap. We do have a Cardinal Connection that'll be going out to the entire community. They'll have an update with regards to the decisions that have had to be made since April 2nd with regards to the unsupported operating levy. Since that, we've had 2 meetings in April. We've had this meeting. The board has formally committed that we are eliminating in-town busing with the 2-mile radius. We have consolidated some country routes. We do have a retirement with a driver, and that won't be refilled. And we are not purchasing one new bus. That's feasible because we typically do buy a bus each year, but because we're reducing our routes, and this will allow us to save, at least on a bus purchase, about $125,000. In addition, K-5, we did have reductions of a section per grade. This is all based on enrollment. For the most part, many of our class levels will be within board recommendations. There are a few that are going above. I'll continue to be watching enrollment. Sarah with 4K and kindergarten, those are, 4K is not required. And so we continue to make sure that people are aware that that programming exists. And then kindergarten is one of the more difficult challenges for getting enrollment throughout the summer. If it climbs, we'll be coming back to make sure that we are load balancing the classrooms appropriately. We do have Gifted and Talented extension programming beyond the classroom was removed. This will be now differentiated in the regular ed classroom. Middle school reduction to the administrative assistants. They had 2 positions there. Special education also has reduced an administrative position, and a middle school choir position was reduced. The high school has reduced by 2.5 positions. Those cover content areas of business, mathematics, and social studies. We have also started to move the bar higher with regards to an estimated increase of the minimum class size towards 20 or more students. As you know, we have been providing food service, and we had a food service agreement with St. Joe's, both with staffing, moving materials over there. We are trying to, the amount of expenses that we put in place was over $60,000. We do recoup that in different ways, both in food prices, commodities, and an agreement that we changed the contract with St. Joe's at the beginning of the year to hold us harmless. We are reducing in every department. We are reducing everybody's budget. It seemed very difficult for us to ask our staff to do more when we're already $60,000 behind the starting line and trying to race and put a lot of effort into that. I can share with you that Principal McGee and Nicole Lenzer did meet last week. I did get a note from Chris that he thought it was very positive. We continue to look at some options for them. So we will not obviously leave our neighbors high and dry, but it is going to have to be different. And so our goal is to come back to you when there is an agreement, if they so choose to use Nicole and her services, albeit in a different way. We did talk about C-team competition events and some reductions in the number of athletic coaching positions. And then tonight, we obviously made discussions or had discussions with regards to the arts, and at this time have reduced the winter $5,100 for the stipend for that director, and also had a reduction in the fall. So at this time, those are the things that have been occurring. We are also obviously reducing all budgets in departments by 15%. With Mike and facilities, we will do something a little bit more dramatic, and that is in anticipation that we try to give you a balanced budget. We have Fund 46 for emergencies, should we need it, but there are some fixed costs that facilities has, salaries and some of the contracts that at this point we will continue to honor. And then, knock on wood, most of the older high cost things in our 3 oldest buildings are now being updated. And so we hope that we can be able to adjust that. We do have Sue Gertis, as you know, who is retiring and starting a step down. We are trying to finalize the hiring for that position. Our goal is to be able to make sure that the audit is successfully completed in July, give you a more accurate fund balance number sooner rather than later, and then that will allow you to pivot and make a decision in June and July about whether or not you would be going back to the community for an additional question at the November election.
Anybody have any comments or questions here? No. Rick, so to date, I mean, just ballparking, what we've cut to what we've reduced, it's around the 1.8 million mark. That's the mark we were looking for.
Yes.
That was our target, and I think we're there. So, barring any unforeseen, circumstances, I think we've gone through the process, the reduction process, and we're basically saying,
Here we are.
Here we are. For next year, we're going to start building back the budget for next year.
Yeah. And now everything's been based on estimates, and so now what we are doing is starting to refine the information so that you have actuals, right? So we now know exactly which positions, we know exactly whose salaries. Our goal is still to honor. You had challenged Sue and I to come back to make sure that staff that are here would be able to, licensed staff would have steps and lanes, and that our hourly individuals would have an increase of 2.5. That's where we're starting, and our goal is to be able to have a fund balance and information to you that would allow you to approve that. Ultimately, we have to come to you with a balanced budget. If I can't do a balanced budget, Sue and I can't move forward without you allocating fund balance. And so we either will have to make more cuts or dip into fund balance. And so those are the 3 big decisions that'll be happening June, July. And obviously, if you're going to go for a referendum, that decision by a resolution has to be approved at the August board meeting.
Okay, so that you just answered my question, because there's preparation that has to go in. It's like 45 days, or what is the date?
72.
72 days before you go to referendum, you have to have it approved as a board resolution.
Correct.
Which puts us in an August timeframe. So you can already see where we're at. I mean, we'd have to start having discussions on that if that's something we want to consider doing. So I think maybe next month we have, maybe there's an item on the agenda to talk through some of that, and maybe schedule a workshop or whatever we have to do to start having discussions on that, if that's the direction we want to go. Anybody have any thoughts or comments there? All right. We'll move on. Thanks, Rick. That concludes the info and discussion. We're going to move to item 8, recognition of visitors. Anybody that wants to be recognized? No?
Yeah.
You just joking with me? Come on up.
Okay, hello. A little nervous here, so hope I come up okay.
Just make sure you state your name and everything.
Okay, yep, my name is Dina Anderson, and I live in Oak Grove Township, and I have 3 students in the district. Next year I'll have 2 freshman boys and 1 senior daughter. I'm also employed with Prescott Schools, and I've been here for 19 years, but tonight I'm speaking as a parent, not as a district employee. And I completely understand the financial situation that we are in due to the referendum. And I don't envy any of the administrators who've had to consider cuts to programming and staffing and positions. And I don't envy the board that you have to decide if you're going to go with those cuts. So I realize that you've had extremely difficult positions, and you've been put in a really tough spot because everything affects different people in the community differently. Tonight, as a parent, though, I just want to tell you about my 2 boys that are athletes. And I've just been really upset the last month and decided that I wanted to come speak tonight just so I could say my piece and know that I've said what I can say. I don't expect you to revisit anything. You've already made the decision, but I just wanted to come and say how this is affecting my family. My 2 boys would have been part of C teams next year in football and basketball. And I completely understand that the budget has to be cut and has to be cut somewhere. I also understand that after listening to the last school board meeting, I listened to it a couple times to try to understand the whole Title IX funding and the whole fundraising idea of supporting teams and how that has to be done for equity reasons. And if I believe I understand how that works, but if I'm misspeaking or didn't understand something, I apologize that my information could be incorrect. I also understand that just 3 of our probably 6 C teams would have had enough participants to actually make a team. The part that for me that I find really difficult is that the elimination of C teams altogether was the best of the worst choices. My son Grayson, who plays football, basketball, and baseball, will get to participate in the sports next year, which I'm very happy for. But his participation will look drastically different because of the opportunity to probably not compete, being he's not going to be at a skill level where he can earn a spot on a JV team or a varsity team actually competing. And I think the whole freshman class for next year, their opportunities to compete looks very different to what 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders will have. Fortunately, my other son Connor is in cross country and track, so he'll get to participate in those. He is also in basketball, but he will only lose 1 season to compete in most likely next year, so that's a good thing. But just some points as a parent that may have been considered or may have been talked about, but I just wasn't aware of it, so I apologize if I'm wrong.
Can I just interrupt really quick? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have to enforce this because we do it for everybody, and it wouldn't be fair. But you're at the 3-minute time. You can keep going, but just make sure you're trying to
speak a little
speed
faster.
it up here. Yep.
Okay. I just wish I just think the elimination of C-team really targets the one grade, the next year's 9th grade kids. And I think if we look at grades 7 through 12, all of the other grades in 7 through 12 get to compete. And that freshman class, unless you're a really elite athlete, really won't compete a lot. I guess I was hoping I could have seen an option where maybe every sport team or every level of sport team could have possibly absorbed some of that $24,000 instead of just that C team. Option 2, I really thought was a great option because it would have given the kids some time to play and have some competition for football, volleyball, and boys basketball. I do appreciate that you guys talked about safety for football. I have that concern as well. My son is quite small. He's only 5 feet and is 100 pounds. So I'm a little nervous with him possibly playing with some of those really bigger kids. And I also appreciate that many of the board members last month talked about and asking if coaches next year and Mr. Caudell next year could probably look for some opportunities where those 9th graders could get in for a few minutes here and there. So I'm really happy that that was included and that people are going to be looking for that.
4 over 5 here, Dina, so.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
I got to be respectful and not trying to
Okay.
enforce and be
Okay.
fair.
No, I
If you got
understand.
If you got a final statement you want to make?
Okay, yeah, just as a kind of a final thought, from my point of view, it just seems that those kids are going to be practicing an entire season and they really don't have the ability to probably compete much. And that would be like asking somebody that's in theater to practice their lines and work after school every day, go to practice, build a set, and then not really get to have that performance. So I'm just disappointed that for that class of kids, they're affected pretty greatly.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'm sorry it took so long.
I appreciate that.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Thank
Anybody
you,
else
Dina.
care to be recognized? All right, thank you. We're on the last time, the motion to adjourn here.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you, everyone.